Chapter 466. In the dark tunnel, Suli walked silently. There was nothing but dead silence around her. The moment she entered the tunnel, the world seemed to turn upside down, as if the stone wall under her feet was the real ground, so that she didn't need to struggle to maintain her figure. The sarcophagus behind her was out of sight. Suli didn't move fast, but she still arrived at the end of the tunnel after a quarter of an hour. There was another dry well in front of her, which was exactly the same as the one in the ancestral hall of the Duan family in both style and pattern. The only difference was that this dry well was more delicate. The pattern was clearly visible, and there was a strange red color, like blood vessels. The faint blood color flickered on Suli's calm face. The dark well seemed to be filled with black ink, and the psychic awareness couldn't penetrate it. The silent horror spread. "Suli, what did you see?" Black Lotus couldn't help but transmit the sound. Since Suli entered here, he couldn't sense anything. He was in a panic because of the darkness. Suli's eyes were calm. Looking at the bloody dry well in front of her, she responded in her heart, "Black Lotus, how long is the golden body of the ancient great emperor?" Black Lotus scratched his head in confusion, but he still replied, "The so-called great emperor is an immortal of your human clan who has reached Deshang realm. I really didn't notice the length of the golden body, but, in my memory, all the golden bodies of the human clan's great emperors are shorter than 60 meters. By the way, why do you suddenly ask this?" "Nothing." Suli's eyes flashed, "But the sarcophagus is too small, and the shape is a bit strange. I think it looks like a posture." "What posture?" "Kneeling." Under the ancient well of the ancestral hall, the 12 heads of the 12 families in Nanli city searched separately, and soon the entire underground space was searched. "Gone. That Dr. Su is not here." The 12 heads of the 12 families gathered together, and their eyes were shining with greed. The most calm and composed young cultivator also revealed a smile, his eyes flashing with a terrifying light. "She didn't go out. That is to say, there are secret passages under the well that we don't know." The young practitioner looked young, but he was actually older than the old man. His cultivation was also the highest among all of them, reaching the peak of the middle stage of Yuanying realm. Mrs. Duan was most afraid of him. The young cultivator's words roused everyone's spirits. "Continue to split up and search. Don't let go of any clues." These 12 people were all shrewd and had extraordinary power. Each of them had their own unique methods. Under such unprecedented unity, everyone quickly made a new discovery. "Come and take a look. The stone chips here seem to be newly peeled off." In the next instant, everyone appeared beside him and stared at the inconspicuous stone fragments on the ground. "Peel off." The young man picked up a stone fragment with a pensive look in his eyes. Then, he subconsciously looked up. At the same time, in the darkness, Suli narrowed her eyes slightly and stepped into the bloody ancient well. Her figure was quickly swallowed by the darkness. The moment her figure disappeared, a layer of frost appeared on the ancient well that was originally flickering with a blood-red light. The layer of frost quickly piled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had spread along the black tunnel to the back of the sarcophagus. The originally ordinary sarcophagus actually emitted a glimmer of light, which restrained the spread of the frost. Countless white light spots poured into the frost, and a piece of extremely complex rune appeared in the nothingness. Although those white spots only appeared for a moment, the light was enough for the residents on the ground to see the scene above. "Found it. There is a sarcophagus above." Someone couldn't help but immediately fly up from the front. The sarcophagus immediately had white light spots appear again. But it seemed that because the seal of the frost was too strong, it didn't form any vision before it dissipated. Seeing that there was no danger, the rest of the people couldn't wait anymore and flew to the top of the wall. After seeing the sarcophagus, they all showed surprise and observed it carefully. "There are words here." Everyone soon found a line of words on the bottom edge of the sarcophagus. Although it was not complete enough, it was enough to make them associate it. "The tomb of the great emperor. This is the tomb of the great emperor." It turned out to be the tomb of the great emperor. Ha ha ha, we are rich. The ancestor of the Duan family turned out to be an immortal. At this moment, even the usually calm young master couldn't help but show excitement on his face. If I can get the treasures in the tomb of the great emperor, won't I also have a chance to become an emperor? For a moment, almost everyone had the same thought. The next moment, they all tacitly looked for the entrance of the tomb. Being hot-blooded, at this moment, no one questioned why the most important sarcophagus was placed outside. Found it, there is a gap here. I saw it too. There is a blue light flashing inside. I don't know what it is. Everyone, be careful. The old man squatted down and wiped the edge of the gap on his forehead. His guess was confirmed. He laughed and said, "It is here. This gap was opened by someone. That Dr. Su is inside. The entrance is behind the sarcophagus. Come, let's work together to open this sarcophagus." When the young cultivator spoke, the rest of the people had already very consciously grabbed the corner of the sarcophagus, ready to go. Ha! With our unity, there is no need to worry about not being able to enter the tomb of the great emperor. 3, 2, 1. The young cultivator grabbed the sarcophagus plate with one hand. His eyes widened, and the power of Yuanying surged. Rise! Boom! 12 different kinds of power of Yuanying filled the sarcophagus in an instant. The decayed sarcophagus, which had been exhausted, instantly turned into stone chips all over the sky. The talisman pattern that had just stabilized in the nothingness also disappeared instantly. The sleeping frost was immediately awakened, showing its fangs like a demon. The 12 powerful masters outside were all terrified. Before they had time to escape, the dense cold air gushed out of the dark passage. In the blink of an eye, thousands of miles were frozen and everything was frozen. My wife, let's go when you are ready. Duan Rong pushed the door open and smiled warmly. The frost swept over and froze him at the door. The dignified woman raised her head in confusion, and her whole body was instantly covered by frost. Daddy! Do-er ran out of the inner room and saw this scene. She froze in horror at this moment. The frost, like an extremely cold demon that escaped from the cage, greedily devoured endlessly. It only took the blink of an eye to freeze the Duan family. Soon, Nanli City fell, the 3 nearby cultivation cities fell, nearly half of the ghost region fell. It shocked the world. The ground trembled slightly. Su Li stopped and looked back at the vortex that had disappeared. Something seems to have happened outside. She quickly withdrew her gaze and calmed down. Then she continued to walk to the huge skeleton not far away. Black Lotus, that thing seems to be attracting me. Su Li secretly felt restless in her heart and asked Black Lotus again, "You really don't know what it is?" Black Lotus immediately replied angrily, "How many times have I told you that the physical body of the ghost clan is not much different from that of the human clan? Such a big skeleton is definitely not from the ghost clan. If you ask me, who should I ask?" Su Li nodded and said seriously, "You just said it twice." Black Lotus's face darkened. When he was about to speak, Su Li's voice came again, "You seem to be very irritable after entering here." Black Lotus was slightly stunned and fell silent. After a while, he said in a muffled voice, "The smell here is very annoying." "Why?" "This is the ancestral land of your ghost clan. I, a human clan, should be the one who hates it." "No reason. Don't ask." Black Lotus's shadow lay on the lotus throne in the ring, and a rare trace of sadness flashed through his eyes. Su Li raised her eyebrows and didn't ask any more questions. The huge skeleton didn't seem to be far away, but it took Su Li 3 days to get close to it. There was a great restriction in the ancestral land, so she couldn't fly. She could only hurry on foot. But Su Li was different from Black Lotus. She didn't feel annoyed here. Instead, she felt very comfortable and free. The feeling of being spied on all the time was gone. Su Li looked up at the dark red sky and found that it was very similar to the sky in the Chaos Zone. There seemed to be no living creatures here, and there was no natural law. No matter what kind of demons and ghosts there were, she could fight at will here without worrying about nature's punishment. Suli narrowed her eyes. This was definitely good news for her. Thinking of this, she gathered her thoughts and stepped into the huge skeleton, approaching the place she sensed in her heart. This huge skeleton of an unknown creature was thousands of meters in size. She couldn't see all of it at a glance. It took Suli another day to walk from the tail area to the heart area. However, she finally arrived at her destination. Whoosh! Suli split the valve-like barrier with a sword and stepped into the empty ventricle. She roughly glanced at the dim space, and then immediately fixed her eyes on a fist-sized red crystal full of wrinkles. If I guessed right, this is the monster's heart. I don't know how many years have passed. Its skin and flesh have decayed, and the heart has shrunk like this. But it must be a good thing since it can remain immortal. Black Lotus shook his head and said. Suli walked closer, and the desire in her heart grew stronger. She always remembered that the talent in her bloodline had not been fully awakened. Since her rebirth in this life, she had only swallowed one Yi. Her bloodline had been restless, but it was also very weak. The talent of blood poison was just an uncontrollable accident brought by her breakthrough in cultivation and the body of evil ghost. However, as her soul fell into the original memory in the space of the tea tree and experienced the transformation, many things began to be self-taught. She could even control part of the blood poison. Black Lotus didn't seem to know the existence of that place. Otherwise, he would have guessed it. At the thought of Black Lotus's age, which was enough to compete with Qing Shui's circle, Suli kept the whole secret in her heart and didn't tell anyone. Little Suli, what are you waiting for? Put it away quickly. We have to find a way to fight against nature's punishment. Seeing that she still had time to be in a daze, Black Lotus couldn't help but urge. Suli's eyes flashed, and she grabbed the blood-colored crystal without saying anything. Crack! The surface of the crystal flashed with dense cracks like a spider web, and instantly shattered. At the same time, an ancient consciousness was slowly waking up. Chapter 467. Suli's body stiffened for a moment and then eased down. This ancient consciousness was very gentle and even made Suli feel a trace of intimacy. Her instinct told her that there was no danger in this consciousness. She stepped back and let the red smoke float into the nothingness, turning into an old dragon shadow. After the illusory body gradually solidified, the dragon opened its eyes and saw Suli. How many years have passed? Finally, a junior comes here. The hoarse sound of rubbing bark sounded and fell into Suli's ears, as if it was settling down for years. The dragon's shadow glanced at Suli, and Suli suddenly felt a chill on the surface of her body. Then she heard the old voice with some surprise. You are not a member of my ghost clan. Suli looked at the dragon's shadow and replied humbly, I am a member of the ghost clan, but also not a member of the ghost clan. But you don't look like a member of the ghost clan. It seemed that her ambiguous answer made the dragon's shadow interested. There was a chuckle in the nothingness, but Suli heard a bit of sadness from it. The ghost clan has declined. Now the juniors can't even recognize me. Suli turned her eyes and didn't answer. Even Black Lotus didn't know what the dragon's shadow in front of him was. The authenticity of the dragon's shadow's words needed to be discussed. Seeing that Suli didn't respond, the dragon's shadow didn't get angry and asked in a gentle voice, Junior, what year is it in the All Spirits calendar? As soon as the words came out, both Suli and Black Lotus were shocked. Black Lotus's voice even howled in Suli's ears. The All Spirits calendar is before the Qing Shui calendar. This is an old monster who has lived longer than me. Master, you must be careful. After saying this, Suli immediately sensed that Black Lotus's pneuma retreated into the depths of Black Lotus Ring. Even she could barely sense it. Suli's face was slightly dark, but she didn't dare to neglect the dragon's shadow. She held her fists and said respectfully, Senior, now it is the Qing Shui calendar. The All Spirits calendar may be the calendar before the Qingshui calendar, but I don't know the specific calculation. Hearing this, the agile dragon's shadow was slightly stagnant and gave an ancient sigh. Su Li stood aside quietly and didn't dare to say anything. An old monster who had slept for many years and was completely out of touch with the present. Who knew what its temperament was? She had to be careful. However, she did not sense any danger. It was not a long time. After 2 days, the dragon's shadow seemed to cheer up and said, "Junior, you are very special." Su Li's eyes changed, and the dragon's shadow laughed again. "Don't be so nervous. I just want to chat. Maybe I will leave before I finish." Without waiting for Su Li's reaction, it looked at Su Li strangely and continued, "Your fate is strange. Even in the All Spirits calendar, it is rare. It is a rare fate that goes against nature. Senior truly has discerning eyes." Since she had been seen through, Su Li did not deny it. She saluted generously and said, "In today's cultivation circle, it is difficult for me to survive. I can only survive in the place where the natural law is weak. But a few days ago, I was targeted by trouble and had to fight against nature's punishment. Senior is experienced and knowledgeable. Do you have a way to deal with it?" Heavenly axiom. Dragon Shadow sneered. "That's just a despicable person who only knows how to flatter and eliminate dissidents. How can he be qualified to be called heavenly axiom?" Su Li narrowed her eyes and was slightly shocked. What did Dragon Shadow mean? Was it possible that heavenly axiom was not a consciousness, but a selfish creature that was as emotional as the human clan? "I do have a lot of ways to fight against nature's punishment, but you are too weak to use any of them." Dragon Shadow's words made Su Li's heart cold. Then he changed the topic. "However, the nature's punishment I mentioned is the complete consciousness of nature's punishment. If you want to fight against the weak field you mentioned, your cultivation is barely enough. Show me the cultivation technique that you've been practicing." Without hesitation, Su Li unlocked All Spirits tactics and displayed Sueyu tactics. When the wisp of green light appeared in Su Li's palm, Dragon Shadow, who had been calm all the time, was out of breath and set off a gust of wind. In an instant, Su Li was blown hundreds of feet away. Kueyu Palace. "You are a disciple of Kueyu Palace." Dragon Shadow's trembling voice resounded through the world, as if he had seen something extremely horrible. Su Li pulled out the flying sword and inserted it into the ground. She barely stopped herself and shouted loudly, "Senior, don't panic. I got the practice method by chance. Now there is no such force as Kueyu Palace in Qingshui Circle." It seemed that this sentence worked. Dragon Shadow took a deep breath. When he saw Su Li approaching again, he regained his calmness. His ancient voice was full of emotion. "Time is really the most terrible enemy. Someone as strong as Kueyu, halfway through, he still seemed to be afraid of that name." He stopped and looked at Su Li. "You are really a lucky person. Not only did you get the legendary practice method, but you also have All Spirits tactics. That is also a great secret method. Compared with Kueyu, it is not inferior. You should cherish it." Su Li nodded and did not say that she only got the first level. She secretly remembered All Spirits tactics in her heart. "I thought that the cultivation of Ghost Circle had declined, and I was afraid that you could not meet the standard of practicing the secret method. Well, I will teach you a spell." As Dragon Shadow said, he stretched out his claws to Su Li and pointed at her glabella. Su Li didn't avoid it. She had seen the movement just now. This old guy could kill her easily. If he wanted to kill her, he didn't need to make so much effort. With a stinging pain between her glabella, a large amount of information poured into her awareness sea. Su Li just frowned and concentrated on absorbing the thought from Dragon Shadow. This scene caused Dragon Shadow to be extremely surprised in his heart. He was from the primeval ghost clan, and his soul had been refined to the peak. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to be in deep slumber for a myriad of years without dissipating. But now, this junior before him was at most 20 years old, yet he was able to accept his gift without changing his expression. Out of curiosity, he could not help but send out a trace of ghost energy into Su Li's body to check. What happened next almost made his dragon eyes pop out of their sockets. The pneuma in Su Li's body suddenly woke up after sensing Dragon Shadow's ghost energy. It formed a vortex in her pubic region and swallowed that wisp of ghost energy like a big mouth. Swallowed. Dragon Shadow fell into a sluggish state, and then suddenly thought of something. He was ecstatic. This girl is also from Ghost Clan. The inheritance of Ghost Clan is not cut off. But the original body of this girl is from Human Clan. It's troublesome. Dragon Shadow's expression changed, but finally it was covered with joy. No matter what race she was from, as long as Ghost Clan could leave their inheritance, he did not need to feel guilty. Dragon Shadow thought with relief, but he felt a little regretful. It was easy for someone as old as him to possess Su Li's body. After going out, there were 10,000 ways to deal with nature's punishment. But this girl was from the same clan. If he launched the secret method of possession, he would only be swallowed by Su Li in vain and give everything he had for hundreds of millions of years to this little girl in front of him. Fortunately, I am not so greedy in my heart. Dragon Shadow secretly rejoiced that it was better to live than to die. Although there was no difference between sleeping here and dying, he just didn't want to die. Maybe one day when the world of Qingshui Circle changed, he could be reborn. Su Li did not know what Dragon Shadow was thinking. She only knew that after she woke up, the old guy in front of her looked at her weirdly. "Senior, why do you keep staring at me?" Su Li sorted out the information in her mind a little and couldn't help asking. Dragon Shadow coughed and said, "The secret method has been passed on to you. You need to practice it diligently. I see that you have a special constitution and talent that has not been awakened. I will show you a way." After saying that, a road sign appeared in front of Dragon Shadow out of thin air, pointing to the depths of the ancestral land of Ghost Clan. There are many ghosts sealed in this space. Your physique requires you to devour enough ghosts in order to open it. The path that I have pointed out for you can gradually open the path of devouring. You only need 10 years to truly awaken your innate talent. When that time comes, not only will you be unrivaled in the Aurus Core stage, even nascent soul stage cultivators will not be your match. Su Li took over the road sign. After a moment of silence, she bowed deeply to Dragon Shadow and said respectfully, "Senior, thank you for showing me the way." Her psychic sense was keen, so she could distinguish the truth in Dragon Shadow's words. Maybe this old guy had some other ideas before, but now he didn't. For a while, Su Li couldn't figure out the reason. After saying goodbye to Dragon Shadow, she left the heart room of the skeleton under Dragon Shadow's gratified gaze. After 3 hours of rapid travel, Su Li got rid of the skeleton's gaze. She felt relaxed. Black Lotus Ring appeared immediately. As the Black Lotus rotated, Black Lotus showed up with a look of fear. "You scared me to death. Little Su Li, Dragon Shadow is an old monster of all spirits, and he is of the same clan as you." Su Li was slightly stunned and blurted out, "Body of evil ghost?" "Yes." Black Lotus nodded and dug out the memory buried for tens of thousands of years in his mind. He said bitterly, "The name of the body of evil ghost came after Qingshui Circle. The body of evil ghost in all spirits calendar had another name, which was known by those who had lived for a long time in Ghost Clan. It was called Prehistoric Ghost Clan." Prehistoric Ghost Clan. Su Li's eyes flashed and she thought, if the body of evil ghost is Prehistoric Ghost Clan, what is the extinct Ghost Clan? Black Lotus sighed and said leisurely, "I just heard the legend. I don't know whether it is true or not. It is said that the Prehistoric Ghost Clan in all spirits calendar was the real Ghost Clan. Those illusory ghosts that were extinct before were just the food raised by the Prehistoric Ghost Clan." Su Li paused her steps and connected the clues in her mind. No wonder that she needed to devour ghosts to activate her talent. The ghosts mentioned by Dragon Shadow must be Ghost Clan. Suli thought for a moment and then sped up immediately. She followed the road sign and rushed to the first place guided by the road sign. She did not have 10 years to waste here, and her cultivation was not as weak as the dragon's shadow appeared to be. Although the dragon's shadow was an ancient existence, it was a remnant soul after all. Coupled with the all-spirits technique, its vision was not very accurate. Therefore, her progress of devouring ghosts must be much faster than what Dragon's Shadow said. Thinking of this, Suli arrived at the first place after half a day. Seeing the soul of human clan sealed tightly, she was silent for a moment and then said calmly, "Black Lotus, what else are you hiding from me?" Chapter 468. Black Lotus looked up and saw Suli's calm face. His heart skipped a beat. What he had been worried about seemed to become a reality at this moment. "Talk." Suli spoke again. Her voice was not loud, but it was irresistible to Black Lotus. He struggled for a moment in his heart, but he finally couldn't bear the pressure brought by Suli. He drooped his head and said, "The body of evil ghost can devour the ghost clan as well as the human clan. Because of your identity as a human clan, I'm afraid." "I haven't told you." "Why are you afraid of me?" Suli showed a meaningful smile. "Do you think I will resist and go crazy for the so-called killing of my own clan?" "Ridiculous." Black Lotus was stunned for a moment. Then he heard Suli snort coldly. She walked to the sealed souls of the human clan and stretched out her hand to pull hard. She released the suction in her body. In an instant, the souls of the human clan were cruelly torn into pieces by the suction and poured into Suli's body, turning into nourishment for the awakening of her talent. After the souls disappeared, Suli took a deep breath and opened her eyes. She looked indifferent as if she had just done a trivial thing. Don't always figure out some boring things. Instead of wasting time, it's better to help me recall the ancient secret method. We are in the same boat. Hearing Suli's indifferent words, Black Lotus couldn't help but feel cold even though he had experienced thousands of years. It turned out that the bottom line in this little girl's heart had been broken long before he appeared. The real evil circle had no taboo. If Suli really grew up smoothly with his assistance, how big a disaster would it be for Qingshui Circle when she could destroy a circle with a flip of her hand? Thinking of this, Black Lotus narrowed his eyes and didn't dare to continue to think about it. The following journey was monotonous and extremely boring. At least Suli thought so. Occasionally, the souls of the ghost clan or the human clan got out of the seal and caused a little trouble for her devouring journey. However, under the suppression of her strength, which was extremely inconsistent with her cultivation, the ghosts and souls sealed in the ancestral land were useless except for taking some more time for Suli. In the eyes of the Dragon Shadow, the souls of the ghost clan and the human clan are all just the food. No wonder I didn't notice the falsehood in its words. Suli walked along the road sign, and her thoughts turned aimlessly. She recalled many details before. Black Lotus, on the other hand, has a troubled look on his face. He's even hiding something and doesn't want me to enter. I'm afraid it's not all because of strength, but more because of the human race's divine soul. A trace of sarcasm flashed through Suli's eyes. Perhaps there were indeed kind-hearted people in the human race, but unfortunately, the people she encountered were all repulsive. Even though she was a human at heart, she still couldn't identify with other humans. Suddenly, Suli's footsteps stopped. Black Lotus, who was preoccupied, was also awakened. He released his spiritual sense to sense the outside world. This feeling caused it to be completely dazed, and its body started to tremble. It's here. On the high platform between the overlapping mountains and rivers, a decaying gray pavilion stood tall. Although its exterior was damaged in many places, one could vaguely see that it looked like a blooming lotus. Glancing at Black Lotus, Suli tiptoed on the ground, and her body flew up agilely. Like a fluttering willow catkin, she landed on a gray lotus petal. The dust under her feet flew, revealing a pair of dark footprints and a jade-like luster. Black Jade Lotus Pavilion, Black Lotus, could it be that this was your former residence? Suli murmured softly. Black Lotus didn't respond, but she didn't care. She landed in front of the pavilion in the pistil below, pushed open the dusty door, and stepped in without hesitation. What came into view were layers of grey gauze, fluttering in the breeze, like white ghosts. Suli glanced over and saw through the structure of the pavilion at a glance. This circular building standing in the center of the pistil seemed to be built by countless concentric circles. Under the cover of the gauze, the pavilion was divided into mutually compatible rings. In the dead space, the thick gauze firmly covered the center of the pavilion, and it couldn't be seen clearly. A cold breath brushed her nose. Suli was expressionless. Her eyes flickered, and she suddenly accelerated her pace. Using her palm as a knife, she split the gauze fluttering in front of her. The illusory knife tore all the gauze in front of her. As the white cloth fell to the ground, Suli's sight suddenly became clear. A throne that seemed to be made of gold came into view, and a skeleton-like figure sat on it. The figure's eyes were sunken and seemed to be flashing with red light. Suli was slightly nervous and took a step forward. The skeleton didn't respond. But she didn't dare to relax. She approached cautiously until she stopped under the throne. She looked up and saw the skeleton's horrible face full of dry skin. Then she breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that the skeleton's eyes were inlaid with unknown blood-colored gems. From a distance, it seemed to be still alive. Not everyone can be like the prehistoric ghost clan, who has lived for hundreds of millions of years. Black Lotus murmured with a complex expression. His words were mixed with too many emotions, like nostalgia and relief. Suli stared at the skeleton and had some guesses in her mind, but she didn't ask explicitly. Wait, the bloodstone. She suddenly narrowed her eyes. Under Black Lotus's horrified expression, she stepped onto the throne and dug out the bloodstone from the skeleton's eyes. Suli interrupted Black Lotus before he finished his words, be quiet. Let me think about it. Seeing Suli's serious face, Black Lotus finally noticed something. His eyes focused on the bloodstone in Suli's hand. He also had a sense of familiarity with it. Where on earth had she seen it? Suli frowned slightly. The first image that came to her mind was the bloodstone in Lin Yanqing's hand in the reincarnation mirror. But later, as she died in the reincarnation mirror, the bloodstone disappeared. The Numa is very similar, but it is a little different. The time doesn't match. They should not be the same person. Suli denied the idea, and the second image came to her mind. That was, little Suli, why do I feel that the blood-colored gem in your hand is exactly the same as the diamond-shaped bloodstone in your sister's hand? Even the Numa. Black Lotus interrupted at an inappropriate time. Suli's eyes darkened. She turned over her palm and put away the bloodstone. She said expressionlessly, there are no ghosts here. Let's go. Then, she had rushed out of the Lotus Pavilion before Black Lotus responded. The road sign flashed and she went away in an instant. In the next few months, Suli kept killing and devouring, and the Numa of the body of evil ghost became more and more obvious. If she was exposed to the natural law at this time, nature's punishment would fall in less than half a breath. But she hadn't learned the secret method that the dragon's shadow taught her. Her mind was a little confused. Little Suli, maybe the truth is not what you think. Let's talk, there is nothing to talk about. Suli's eyes were cold, and a red light flashed in her eyes. The advanced ghost in her hand was immediately crushed. Countless black spots went into her body, making her Numa darker and deeper. Even Black Lotus didn't dare to look directly at her at this moment. It might be influenced by Suli's physique. But for Black Lotus, the current mood of his master was what he was most afraid of. But no matter how he persuaded, Suli always forcibly interrupted him. Inevitably, he thought of the scene that Suli almost died with him in order to force him to show up. It can't go on like this. Anxiety appeared in Black Lotus's eyes. He was truly worried sick for his current master. Back in the day, every master that had obtained him had been incomparably respectful to him and would grant his every request. Especially the skeleton that had died on the golden throne, who had bowed to him and called him ancestor. Every time he thought of the past and compared it with Su Li's attitude at the moment, Black Lotus felt extremely bitter in his heart. But he still had to persuade her. Little master, even if you have been escaping, you have to face it after you get out of here. You don't want everything you have planned in this life to be ruined by Hua Yan, do you? As soon as Black Lotus's voice fell, Su Li's calm eyes fluctuated, and her swift body suddenly stopped. Who is the person on the golden throne? Su Li's tone was calm, but Black Lotus sensed the chill from it. He breathed a sigh of relief in his heart and didn't dare to hide it. He hurriedly said, "That is my last master." Su Li's eyes flashed, "The chieftain of the Ghost Clan?" "No." Black Lotus's tone was a little mocking. He was just a weapon used by the Ghost Clan to fight. The Ghost Clan used him, but they were also extremely afraid of him. He was so kind that he didn't choose to live alone at the last moment of the Ghost Clan's extinction. The body of the last generation of evil ghost, Su Li raised her head expressionlessly and looked at the gloomy sky of the mysterious realm of the ancestral land. Her narrow and long eyes revealed ruthlessness. "I have no interest in the history of your Ghost Clan. Tell me the origin of the Blood Stone." Black Lotus sighed, "It's also a long story." "It doesn't matter." Su Li pointed between her eyebrows and closed her eyes. The shadow behind her suddenly moved and turned into a huge phantom like a giant skeleton in the blink of an eye. "I still need 100,000 ghosts to activate my talent. I have enough time to listen to you slowly." Black Lotus looked up and saw the huge phantom, which was not inferior to the dragon's shadow skeleton, and his eyelids twitched. This was Su Li's evil ghost. When Su Li focused on devouring nourishment to awaken the talent of evil ghost, the Lord of Xingtian Palace, who was practicing in seclusion in the small mysterious realm of Xingtian Shrine, suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a little surprise in his calm eyes. "Call the Lord of Evil." Soon after his voice came out, the manservant in black waiting outside the door immediately went down the mountain. Not long after, a thin and tall black figure appeared at the door. Ling Li came in and said in a cold tone as usual, "The Tianjiao battle is about to start, and I have killed all the people who should be killed. Did the Lord of Xingtian Palace accidentally miss some people?" Seeing this, the Lord of Xingtian Palace laughed. "It seems that your injury has healed." Ling Li snorted coldly and did not answer. The Lord of Xingtian Palace was not annoyed, but the smile on his face gradually disappeared. His voice was like a sharp sword, piercing into Ling Li's ears. "Take the Lihan sword and go to the ghost's domain." Chapter 469. Ling Li's body was stiff for a moment, and then he relaxed and said calmly, "Did the remaining evil show up?" The Lord of Xingtian Palace shook his head slightly. "It is said that the ghost region is frozen for tens of thousands of miles. The Lihan tablet vibrates. Something big must have happened. Go and check it out. If the remaining evil doesn't show up, don't expose your identity as the tablet keeper." After that, he waved his wide sleeves. The sword light flashed, and a strange black and red spiritual sword was inserted in front of Ling Li. The blood on the black sword was steaming like a ghost. It was surprisingly harmonious with Ling Li's black robe. This was an evil sword. Ling Li pursed his lips, and a touch of coldness flashed in his eyes. His outstretched hand paused, and finally grasped the sword hilt. In an instant, countless bloodlines came alive from the sword hilt and scrambled into his palm. The familiar and piercing pain didn't make him frown. When the whole sword turned into bloodlines and went into his body, Ling Li raised his eyes and took a deep look at the Lord of Xingtian Palace on the high platform. Then he left silently, and his pneuma quickly disappeared in the small mysterious realm of Xingtian Shrine. The palace, which symbolized the pinnacle of power in the cultivation circle, returned to silence again. "Uncle Fong, are we really going to Ghost Region? Just the sound of that place scares me." In the hall of an intelligence organization, Su Buwang glanced at the leaving steward, and whispered to the bearded calm young man, "Didn't you say that you would help me find my mother?" Although my mother is also a member of Xingtian Shrine, she is just a maid. How can she be interested in the frozen ghost region? Maid? Fang Yuan stopped putting away the jade slip and looked stunned. Your mother is a maid of Xingtian Shrine? Isn't she? Su Buwang blinked in confusion. Fang Yuan frowned and didn't answer. In Xingtian Shrine, Su Buwang at this age couldn't be a second person except her son. During this time, he didn't deliberately test Su Buwang. Although this boy survived in Xingtian Shrine, he didn't know much, and what he heard was half-truth, such as now. Uncle Fang, is it? Su Buwang looked serious, and Fang Yuan couldn't help but feel nervous. Was his performance too obvious? Could it be that you have some private matters to attend to in Ghost's domain? Su Buwang's eyes were shining, and he showed a considerate smile. Uncle Fang, if you want to go, just say it directly. Don't beat around the bush. I, Su Buwang, have concerns in my heart. Uncle Fang is not someone who pops out from a crack in a stone. Naturally, you also have concerns. Wherever you go, I will follow. Looking at Su Buwang's shameless appearance, Fang Yuan's eyelids twitched, but he secretly breathed a sigh of relief and did not explain. Since that's the case, let's go. He stepped out of the attic. Su Buwang glanced at the plaque of Tainik Attic hanging on the attic at the entrance of the hall and immediately followed him. At the same time, Han's sect of Holy Sect of Ghost Region spread to all major regions of Qingshui Circle with the help of the Jade Slip for help from Tainik Attic. The ice demon of the ghost realm is invisible and traceless. It's very likely that it's a great demon that was born naturally in this world. Only soul formation cultivators can resist the cold. The ghost domain is in a terrible situation. I hope everyone can go and help. Within a few days after the news was spread, the teleporting matrices of major regions were immediately overcrowded. Old monsters in Huashan realm who had not appeared for many years appeared one after another, which was an eye-opener for many casual practitioners. I didn't expect that there are so many warm-hearted people in the cultivation circle. Looking at the unprecedented grand occasion, some people couldn't help but sigh, but they were immediately laughed at by others. Warm-hearted? You are really naive. If it weren't for the ice demon that was born naturally in this world, who would be willing to die? Ice demon is just a demon. What good can it do? How can I know? I only know that this kind of demon spirit that was born naturally in this world is of great use to those with high cultivation. Ling Li, who wore a casual practitioner's robe and covered his face, mingled in the crowd of the teleporting matrices. He glanced at the surrounding practitioners. After seeing the team of Xingtian Shrine, he immediately withdrew his gaze. In the next moment, the teleporting matrix was full of spiritual power, and everyone disappeared. In the small mysterious realm of Han's sect of Ghost Region, it was as warm as spring. As the teleportation array flashed, wave after wave of cultivators with high cultivation bases arrived. Uncle Fang, is this the Han sect? Su Buwang looked curiously at the scenery of mountains and rivers in the small mysterious realm, and transmitted the sound in a low voice. It's spring all year round here, and it's not cold at all. Why is it named Han? However, the atmosphere of this sect is much milder than that of Xingtian Shrine, and there is no bloody smell. Fang Yuan did not respond. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and his gaze fell on a mountain opposite the teleporting matrix. There were many familiar disciples of holy sects on it. The 4 peak holy sects have all sent people, and the people of Han's sect are entertaining them. Some people whispered around, and many people's eyes fell on the opposite mountain following the guidance. Huangxing Hall, Chu Qingning of Ankue Valley, Fang Mu of Tianhe sect, Xingtian Shrine. Hey, it's not that person. Is the rumor true? What rumor? Ha, that person has too many enemies. I heard that he killed many talents of Ankue Valley this time. If he shows up openly, it's hard to guarantee that the Grand Elder of Ankue Valley will not kill him in person. Many people of Ankue Valley died, which I heard. Isn't it confirmed that it was done by the evil circle? Why is it related to the evil emperor? I'm not a member of holy sections. How do I know? Isn't the young lord of Tianhe sect Fang Yuan? Why is his brother Fang Mu leading the team? I heard that he left the sect to travel in his early years, and now there is no news from him. No one knows where he went. Gee, it is said that the evil emperor and Fang Yuan because of that. Shut up. There was a sudden shout in the crowd, and the casual practitioners consciously made way for them. Then they saw a group of disciples dressed in the costumes of Xingtian Shrine coming aggressively. The leader was a female practitioner in red with a delicate face. Her pretty face was full of anger. You dare to offend our Xingtian Shrine? I will tear your mouth. Seeing such a situation, the practitioner was so scared that his face turned pale. At this moment, he even knelt down softly. I am talkative. Please spare my life. But the woman was unmoved. She really sent someone to tear the practitioner's mouth, and his head was almost torn in half from the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he could not survive. The shrill scream echoed in the mountains, and the blood spilled. Most of the people around the originally crowded teleportation matrix were gone in an instant. They didn't dare to stay, for fear of being angered by the people of Xingtian Shrine. Su Buwang was angry and was about to step forward, but he was firmly held by Fang Yuan. It's not suitable to make trouble here. If it is exposed, you and I can't escape. The cold voice poured into his heart, and Su Buwang suddenly woke up with a shudder. Fear flashed in his eyes, and he let Fang Yuan pull him away. He was slightly confused, and he didn't notice that a pair of eyes among casual practitioners were staring at him through the mask. Ling Li suppressed the fluctuation of the mask. When he saw Su Buwang and Fang Yuan met together and got along well, his eyes became gentle for a moment, and then returned to coldness and silence. After Su Buwang was pulled into a guest room by Fang Yuan, he looked lost and murmured, "That is Sister Zhuquan. I still remember that she treated me well when I was a child. I didn't expect that she was so cruel and merciless that she wanted to kill me." Fang Yuan looked at Su Buwang with amusement. Su Li did all kinds of things in the reincarnation mirror. In terms of ruthlessness and cunning, Zhuquan of Xingtian Shrine was nothing. Even Ling Li, the hierarch of Yinma cult at that time, was fooled by her. However, Su Li's ruthlessness was not fighting. Every word and deed had a deep meaning. Even Ling Li, the hierarch of Yinma cult at that time, was fooled by her. If not, how could he be deeply infatuated with her? Even after she married Ling Li, he didn't want to leave. He just wanted to guard her and protect her. After the bloody accident of Holy Spirit, Su Li's soul was scattered. He returned to Qingshui Circle and Tianhe sect, but everything he saw was gray, as if everything was meaningless. He left the sect to find a way to resurrect Su Li, but he didn't expect to meet Su Buwang. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan looked at Su Buwang more gently. Again. Su Buwang's scalp was numb, and he moved away without a trace. Although this senior, whom he met by chance, not only protected his safety but also guided his cultivation, and didn't overstep his authority in ordinary days, like a close elder, he still felt uncomfortable and even confused. Could it be that the cultivators of the outside world are all so amiable and approachable? He thought so at first, but he followed Fang Yuan to travel all over the country. What he met and heard was that no one could be so sincere to a strange junior. They were all full of wariness and deception. Maybe God has mercy on me and compensates me for the grievances I suffered in Xingtian Shrine. If I can always follow Uncle Fang, it's not bad. Su Buwang thought like this, and suddenly felt a vibration outside. A faint chill spread along the nothingness, but Fang Yuan reached out and pinched it out on his fingertips. At the same time, a deep and old voice resounded through Han sect. Fellow practitioners, the passage of the outside world has been opened, and the chill is strong. Only practitioners above Huashan realm can resist it. Before the voice died away, Su Buwang, who pushed open the window, saw a large wave of people pouring into the huge portal suspended in the nothingness, and a wisp of frightening chill was revealed from it. Su Buwang even had an illusion that he was about to be frozen in an instant. Uncle Fang, How about I stay in Han sect? It's convenient for you to move alone, so I won't trouble you. Su Buwang's face was pale, and he looked back embarrassedly. But he saw Fang Yuan's fingers twisting, and his expression was unprecedentedly solemn. The smile on his face also disappeared. Uncle Fang, what's wrong? You're right. Fang Yuan suddenly stood up, waved his hand, and condensed a sword seal, and slapped it into Su Buwang's glabella. You stay in Han sect to practice, and wait for me to come back. Su Buwang only felt a coolness between his eyebrows. Hearing Fang Yuan's words, he didn't care what was slapped between his eyebrows, and hurriedly said, Uncle Fang, I was just joking. I'll go with you. Don't worry. Shengtian Shrine has no time to manage such a mighty demon in such a realm. As long as you don't mess around in Han sect, no one can do anything to you. Fang Yuan comforted him in a warm voice, but he didn't look relaxed. He stared at the passage and said, the situation is much more complicated than I thought. If you are invaded by the chill, you will be frozen into an ice sculpture in an instant, and I can't save you. How can you find your mother at that time? Hearing Fang Yuan's words, Su Buwang finally understood the power of the ice demon. He shrank his neck and said with some embarrassment, Uncle Fang, you should come back early. Don't offend holy sects rashly. They are not good people. Fang Yuan couldn't help but laugh. Su Buwang's prejudice against holy sects was too great. But when he thought that this child grew up in Shengtian Shrine, he was relieved. Chapter 470. Passing through the passage of the small mysterious realm, Fang Yuan was shocked by the coldness. The originally green ghost region had become a world of ice and snow. In the tranquility of the vast expanse of whiteness, the cold wind whistled past his ears. The strength of this ice demon was more powerful than he imagined. It's so cold. My cultivation is at least in Yuanying realm, but I can feel cold. The ice demon's chill is so terrible. If I knew it, I wouldn't have come here. Many casual practitioners looked horrified and regretted in their hearts. Their eyebrows and hair were quickly covered with a layer of frost. Everyone, if you are not strong enough, you can come to our holy sect to be the vanguard. Our sect can protect you from freezing to death. Our sect also accepts casual practitioners, and their strength is not limited. At the same time, many sects spoke. Many casual practitioners' faces changed, and then they chose to join the holy sect team. They knew that these holy sects just used them as cannon fodder, but if they didn't join, they were likely to freeze to death immediately. So, they had no choice. Ling Li mixed in the casual practitioners and also chose a holy sect team to join. This sect was Fang Yuan's Tianhe sect. He walked to the disciple of the Tianhe sect expressionlessly and showed his cultivation of Yuanying realm. The disciple in charge of the inspection looked a little respectful and invited Ling Li to the third team. There were more than 20 people in this team, all of whom were in Yuanying realm. Although there were several times fewer people than the team in Jindan realm, the survival rate was much higher. This is the amulet given by our sect. As long as you don't lose it, the chill in nature's test will not kill you. Someone sent a jade amulet. Ling Li took it and said, thank you, expressionlessly. The relationship between practitioners was delicate. Even the disciples of the same sect were deceiving each other, let alone strangers. Seeing Ling Li's cold attitude, the disciple of the Tianhe sect didn't care and turned away. Ling Li glanced around and found no one came to make trouble. A purple light flashed in his eyes, and he immediately fixed his eyes on Fang Yuan, who had mixed in the team of the Shengtian Shrine. Wang didn't come. A trace of undetectable calmness flashed on his face, and he turned his eyes. Fang Yuan frowned and felt that someone was spying on him. But after he vaguely probed, he found nothing. When a fierce gust of cold wind swept past, all the teams seemed to have a tacit understanding, and almost simultaneously set off into the depths of the snowy land. The teams of the Four Peak Saint sects were at the forefront. The snowflakes were blown into snow needles by the cold wind, and when they landed on the sturdy protective arrays, they made tinkling sounds. Some of the protective arrays put up by the smaller sects were actually on the verge of breaking. Those rogue cultivators who were unwilling to join the Glory sect were so scared that their faces turned pale. They immediately left the group and joined the Glory sect. The various sacred sects didn't reject anyone and accepted everyone. In the short span of an hour, everyone had traveled about 500 kilometers, but the group had shrunk from 100 to a dozen. Fourth Elder, what's the result? Yin Xuedong, who was dressed in a light pink palace dress, respectfully followed beside a white-browed old woman and asked softly. The source is 3,000 li northwest. The white-browed old woman put away the compass and said lightly. A map of the ghost domain suddenly appeared in Yin Xuedong's mind, and her beautiful eyes flashed. Near Nanli City. Let's go. Your Highness, if we change our direction, the other 3 sects will notice it immediately. The black-clothed guard beside her looked embarrassed. Yin Xuedong snorted coldly. Our Huangxing Hall's deduction skill is unique, but the other 3 sects' deduction skill is not much worse than ours. The specific location will be exposed sooner or later. Offend the other 3 sects for this time difference. Can you bear such a sin? The black-clothed guard suddenly tightened his body. He bowed his head and said shamefully, Your Highness, you are right. I am not considerate enough. Yin Xuedong glanced at him and called her personal maid, pass my order. Change the direction and rush to Nanli City at full speed. Yes. Young Lord, Huangxing Hall suddenly moves to the northwest at full speed. In the Black Palace, Chu Qingning teased the huge scorpion climbing on the edge of the pool. When he heard the message, he stopped and the expression on his face returned to normal. He said casually, the old women of Huangxing Hall have some skills. Keep up with them. Young Lord, if they cheat, the maid, who stood respectfully beside the scorpion pool, couldn't help but stand up. But before she finished speaking, the giant scorpion in the pool suddenly turned into a shadow. It rushed to the edge of the pool in an instant and bit the maid's head off. Clatter. The corpse fell down powerlessly, twitched twice, and then stopped moving. All the other maids standing by the pool showed horror and covered their mouths to prevent themselves from making a sound. Chu Qingning's eyes were gloomy, and he was not as cheerful as in the reincarnation illusion. No one needs to question my order. When the confidant who came to deliver the message saw this scene, he retreated without any fluctuation in his heart. He had been accustomed to the domineering and bloodthirsty young lord. This maid just received the young lord's favor yesterday. Did she really think that the young lord would treat her differently? You must be daydreaming. The confidant shook his head and sneered secretly. Then he asked someone to clean up the corpse. Not long after, the blood-stained ground in the summer palace was cleaned to the point that it could be seen as a mirror. There was no trace left. Chu Qingning fiddled with the food in his hand. After a while, he seemed to think of something. He threw the food into the pool, stood up and walked out of the summer palace. In the world of ice and snow, the sun was particularly dazzling, which made Chu Qingning's pale face even paler. Wisps of black lines flashed under his face like a spell. This was the sign of practicing Dark Codex, the most important cultivation method of Ankou Valley, to the realm of great accomplishment. For thousands of years, there had been countless amazing people in Ankou Valley, but only he had practiced Dark Codex to the realm of Great Minister. At the moment when he showed the realm of Dark Codex, he automatically became the next master of Ankou Valley. Unless he died accidentally, otherwise, no one was qualified to compete with him. When the old man who was supervising the team saw Chu Qingning walk into the sun, his face suddenly changed slightly. He hurried over and said, Young lord, why are you? It doesn't matter. I won't die in the sun for a while. Chu Qingning interrupted him, and his eyes flickered. Have you found any news about Emperor of Evil? The old man was slightly stunned and shook his head. This Shengtian Shrine didn't send Emperor of Evil to maintain the scene. Pig brain. Chu Qingning turned hostile and scolded, how did those talents in the valley die last time? Can't you even think of this? You mean? The old man's face changed. I will go to confirm the identity of casual practitioners. Seeing him leave in a hurry, Chu Qingning habitually curled his lips, but he was not as simple as before. Instead, he revealed a sense of gloom and evil. Hierarch, I will kill you even at the cost of human lives. Give the order. Before encountering real danger, try not to let casual practitioners lose their lives. Strengthen the protective tactical matrix by 30%. Since Huangxing Hall and Ankuei Valley have taken action, we will follow them. Fang Mu was dressed in a white robe, and his face was serious and calm. He gave a series of instructions, and the whole Tianhe sect team moved quickly like a precise machine. After redetermining the direction, Fang Mu could take a break and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. A trace of longing and complexity flashed through his eyes. Eldest brother, has your burden always been so heavy? In the palace of Xingtian Shrine, Zhu Quan stood respectfully beside a beautiful figure. Miss, I found out that Su Bu Wang, the bastard son of Emperor of Evil, is hiding in Han sect. Ha! A chuckle came from the red lips of the beautiful figure. My brother is really an infatuated person. Unfortunately, he has tarnished the bloodline of my Ling family. Wang is becoming less and less lovely and unlikable. Send someone to keep a close eye on him. If this boy dies before the Tianjiao list is reset, my brother will go crazy. Yes, Mississippi, in the blink of an eye, half a month passed. The entire ghost region was covered with ice and snow. There was nothing but dead silence. It was not as dangerous as imagined. Except for a few unlucky teams who encountered the cold storm, and their protective tactical matrix was destroyed and frozen to death, almost all the teams of holy sects were unharmed. At this moment, the sky of the ancestral land of the Ghost Clan was always so dim, and the cold air from the outside world never penetrated in. Crack! 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 A series of breaking sounds sounded from Su Li's hands. In the blink of an eye, the sealed ghosts turned into powder. The shadow behind Su Li took a big breath, and the powder disappeared instantly. At the same time, the shadow's body also grew a little taller. Black Lotus, how many ghosts have I devoured? Su Li continued to fly and asked casually. Black Lotus lay on the lotus throne on the surface of the ring. Looking at the phantom of evil ghosts that almost burst the sky, he couldn't help swallowing and said dryly, it's more than 90,000. If I devour another 9,000, I can awaken. Su Li nodded as usual and didn't answer. She continued to hurry on her way. Black Lotus was horrified. He originally estimated that Su Li would spend at least a month here. How long had it been? In just half a month, Su Li had almost finished the devouring. In the first few days of the devouring, although Su Li's speed was fast, it was still normal. But after the evil ghosts behind Su Li exceeded the height of thousands of meters, the digestive ability immediately increased by several levels. In addition, with the suppression effect on the Ghost Clan, Su Li almost didn't need to stop along the way, and the sealed ghosts were killed on the way. The scene that Black Lotus imagined encountering powerful ghosts in the later stage and winning the difficult battle did not happen at all. How much has Su Li's strength improved? Crack! He couldn't help but shrink his neck when he saw the ghost that broke out of the seal and was then easily crushed and devoured by Su Li. Although his strength was greatly reduced because he didn't have a physical body, but this was the soul of the middle stage of nature's test. Another day and a half later, Su Li habitually crushed the ghost in her hand, but the scene of devouring did not appear again. She was stunned for a moment and turned to look at the phantom behind her. She saw that the phantom that burst the sky burped, and then shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Awakened? Black Lotus widened his eyes and stared at the phantom's change. The final form of the evil ghost largely determines Su Li's talent of evil ghost. Chapter 471. Su Li sat down cross-legged and waited patiently. It would take 6 hours to stop the shrinking speed. Before that, Su Li swallowed the haunted house, but she could only see but not sense the evil ghost behind her. But as the shadow gradually shrank, a special feeling gradually emerged from Su Li's heart. It was the feeling of control. Su Li clenched her hands, and Black Lotus immediately saw the evil ghost make the same action, but the action was very small. After awakening, you can completely control the evil ghost, which is the original talent of your body of evil ghost. Black Lotus looked solemn, without the usual playfulness. Because of your special birth, your body is a weak human clan, the evil ghost can only wake up now. Before awakening the talent of evil ghost, you can't control the shadow. The body of evil ghost ultimately determines the potential of the body of evil ghost. You obviously skipped the step of accumulation. Su Li heard the words, and there was a glimmer of expectation in her eyes. I'd like to see what kind of talent I can awaken. The forbidden alien that makes the ghost clan fearful should not be a loser who can only use blood to poison people, right? Black Lotus suddenly rolled his eyes. If you were a loser, then all the talents in Qingshui Circle didn't need to live. Time passed slowly, the shrinking speed of the evil ghost was slower than Su Li had imagined. After half a day, the evil ghost was only as tall as 2 people. Its black liquid-like body also began to wriggle rapidly, showing an embryonic form, the embryonic form of a human. Another 2 hours later, the height of the shadow was reduced to the level of Su Li, and the outline became clearer. The black faded, and the color of flesh appeared. Not long after, a naked girl appeared in front of Su Li and looked at Su Li with sparkling eyes. This is Su Li. Black Lotus was dumbfounded. He couldn't help but wipe his eyes and look up again. It was not an illusion. This evil ghost unexpectedly turned into the face of your previous life. This. Black Lotus was excited. What the hell is going on? I have never met an evil ghost that can transform into the face of my previous life, and it is in the form of a human clan. Oh my god, Su Li, what kind of monster are you? Su Li frowned, reached out to open the universe ring, and put clothes on the evil ghost. With a thought, the evil ghost actually moved by itself. Except that it couldn't speak, it was full of spirituality. This face is already dead. I don't like it. Su Li's face was not very good. After practicing the all-spirits tactics, she could change into any face without being noticed. But even so, she didn't want to restore the face of her previous life. Those unbearable past had long been buried with the death of the holy girl of Yushu sect. All that was left was hatred. As soon as Su Li finished her words, Black Lotus saw that the face of the evil ghost twisted and turned into Su Li's current appearance, just like a clone. Su Li, what is your talent? Quick, sense it. Black Lotus asked expectantly without thinking about the face of the evil ghost. Su Li closed her eyes slightly and sensed carefully. After only a moment, she suddenly opened her eyes, and a deep surprise flashed in her eyes. After more than 2 lives, there were few things that could make her state of mind fluctuate. Black Lotus was more curious when he saw her being so shaken. But before he could ask, there was a sudden explosion in the sky. Boom! Su Li looked up and immediately saw a crack in the originally gloomy sky, and a bitter chill came in through the crack. Junior, how many ghosts have you swallowed? A voice full of surprise and anger came into Su Li's ears from a very far distance. It was the figure of the dragon Shadow. Su Li was slightly shocked, but she didn't panic. She replied, about 100,000. I don't remember the specific number. What? You have eaten so much, but you are not stuffed to death. I just awakened my talent. The dragon Shadow suddenly felt that he had suffered 10,000 points of damage. He resisted the jealousy in his heart and gritted his teeth. The foundation of this small world has been eaten too much by you, and it is about to be destroyed. Leave here quickly. I also have to go. Otherwise, if the natural law finds you and me, it will send the thunder of doom. Ghosts are the foundation of the ancestral land. Su Li's face darkened. Senior, why didn't you say it earlier? Bastard. I thought that you, as a junior, could eat thousands of ghosts at most, but I never thought. The dragon Shadow said angrily, and didn't have the unfathomable appearance just now. Su Li was amazed. Suddenly, she heard a faint sound of thunder. Then she saw the dragon's shadow tremble with fear. He immediately urged his power to open a whirlpool and got into it. He disappeared with the huge skeleton in the blink of an eye. Where else can he go? How do I know? Black Lotus said grumpily, you'd better think about yourself. I sensed that many practitioners of the human clan are covetously watching outside, and one of them has an extremely terrible pneuma. Su Li's eyes flickered slightly, but she didn't panic. She cast the all-spirits tactics on herself, and her appearance suddenly became blurred. It doesn't matter. I got a lot of things from the inheritance of the dragon shadow. I have a high affinity with the ancestral land of the ghost clan. The destruction of the small world will produce great power, and the natural law will also avoid it. I can control a part of it. Black Lotus, who was in a panic, suddenly brightened his eyes when he heard this. Can you help me get hundreds of ghost practitioners' souls to taste? Get out. I was wrong, Master. I just want to repair the spirit body. Above Nanli City, the cold wind was biting cold. 20 teams had come to this point, and only 4 teams of the peak holy sects were left. Of course, the other 17 teams joined in, but only 30% of them froze to death. Fang Mu, who occupied the east side of Nanli City, looked dignified and took a breath. It's really not easy to get involved in this mess. He looked up at the other 3 sects who occupied one side of Nanli City, and then his eyes returned to the ancient well in the center of the city, which was the only one that was not frozen. In the vast expanse of whiteness, there was only a little black dot, which was too conspicuous. The moment the teams of the 4 sects arrived, everyone found the abnormality of the ancient well. Ice Demon is probably in that ancient well. Everyone was talking about it, and many casual practitioners who had lived until now were also excited. Finally, they could see the true appearance of Ice Demon. Something is wrong. In the palace of Huangxing Hall, the gray-haired old woman frowned, and her old face instantly wrinkled like a piece of bark. Your Highness, I smell an extremely ominous breath. Yin Shuodong frowned tightly. The 4th elder's deduction skill was second only to the 1st elder among all the elders of Huangxing Hall, so she naturally believed it. But since they had come here, there was absolutely no reason to turn around. Even if she wanted to save the sect, she would definitely be punished when she returned. Let's wait and see. Let's leave as soon as we get Ice Demon. The old woman nodded anxiously. She also knew that it was unrealistic to retreat, but the uneasiness in her heart became stronger. Ha ha ha, I finally found the hiding place of Ice Demon. You 3, if you still don't move, it will be impolite for me to refuse. In the palace of the west, Chu Qingning with a pale face came out with a smile. He glanced at Yin Shuodong evilly and said in an arrogant tone. Yin Shuodong's beautiful face flashed a trace of uneasiness, but she recovered in an instant. She said with a smile, since the young lord of Ankue Valley is so anxious, why not explore the way first? Thank you in advance. Ha, Sister Shuodong, after 1,000 years, you haven't changed at all. Chu Qingning grinned, but his eyes were cold like a poisonous snake. He said, I haven't settled the old score with you yet. You too, if you have any grievances, let's go back. I don't have the patience to listen to you quarrel. Fang Mu showed up with a cold face. He looked at Chu Qingning and Yin Shuodong with strong disgust, which was not concealed. Ha ha ha. It's a pity. I really want to know what you 3 have experienced in that broken mirror. It's a pity that Master doesn't allow it. In front of the palace of Xingtian Shrine, the woman with a veil walked leisurely and swayed. The other 3 people all snorted coldly and stopped talking. Xingtian Shrine, the head of the 4 peaks, could be built with countless flesh and blood. No matter which of the other 3 sects faced Xingtian Shrine, they would be invisibly inferior. Especially the woman who led the team this time, they all knew her. She was as ruthless as Evil Emperor. In terms of killing people, she might not be as many as Evil Emperor. But in terms of means, all the disciples of the four-peak holy sects were probably not as good as her. This had nothing to do with identity, talent, or bloodline. It was just because she was the protodisciple of Fate Ancestor. The Emperor of Evil was notorious. Although he had Shengtian Shrine as his backer, if the other three sects killed him secretly, Shengtian Shrine would not pursue it with great fanfare. But this woman was different. The name of Fate Ancestor could be traced back to a long time ago. It was even said that he had become a part of the natural law. If someone dared to hurt his protodisciple, there was absolutely no way to survive, unless it was the Grand Elder of the four-peak holy sections. Since I'm here on this trip to the Ice Demon, there's no reason for me to let my younger brothers and sisters take the risk. Zhu Quan, take some people to go in and investigate first. The woman stretched out her white hand and handed out a crystal-clear jade pendant. Zhu Quan took the jade pendant and jumped down from the palace without saying a word. At this moment, everyone recognized that the jade pendant was clearly a magic weapon to collect demons. Ha ha ha, sister, let me help you. Chu Qingning licked his lips, and a gloomy light flashed in his eyes. He jumped down directly. The old man behind him sighed helplessly, but his pace did not slow down. He also fell into the well. Let's go, too. Yin Xuedong and Fang Mu looked at each other and jumped into the well almost at the same time. At this moment, Su Li was still tirelessly devouring the souls of ghosts in the ancestral land. Before the destruction of this small world, she wanted to minimize the loss. Master, what are you doing? Your talent has been awakened, and these ghosts are useless. Black Lotus lay on the ring surface. For the sake of the souls of ghost practitioners, he immediately changed the name shamelessly, and shouted very happily all the way. It's still useful. Su Li was so annoyed that she replied. Black Lotus was refreshed, can your talent be used? No, but I want to refine the external incarnation. Su Li glanced at Black Lotus with disgust, and said disdainfully, you don't even know this. Have you lived for 10,000 years in vain? Chapter 472. Black Lotus's face darkened. Even if he had tens of thousands of years of memory, it would be less than half of that of the primordial ghost clan. He was still concerned about the ghost practitioner's soul, so he held back his indignation and said, Master, you have received part of the memory of the primordial ghost clan. Are you going to dislike me? Seeing that Black Lotus didn't argue with her as usual, Su Li couldn't help but feel bored and lost the mood to continue the discussion. Black Lotus put down his self-esteem and suddenly felt much more at ease. He couldn't help but ask curiously, I know the external incarnation. People have 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls. I have met many practitioners of the human clan who have incarnations before. But for the ghost clan, the soul is the root. There is only one, and the damage caused by the divided soul is almost irreversible. You have to be careful. Su Li glanced at him and made a gesture. An oil lamp phantom emerged. There were 10 light spots, 3 big and 7 small, shining on it. 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls. I also have them. Black Lotus stared at the lamp. Although he had guessed that Su Li was not a pure body of evil ghost and was likely to be a unique existence of the human clan, it was just a guess after all. When this scene appeared in front of him, it was inevitable to be shocked. Master, you really are an out-and-out anomaly. After holding back for a long time, Black Lotus flattered her and shrank back into the ring space. Su Li ignored it and continued to collect ghosts as soon as possible. Although she could also practice the external incarnation of the human clan, the incarnation she mentioned was essentially different from that of the human clan. After all, the dragon's shadow was not a human clan, and the incarnation secret method taught by him could only be practiced by the primordial ghost clan. The incarnation of the human clan came from the divided soul, and the incubation time was not short. If the incarnation was injured or destroyed, the original body would also suffer the backfire. But the secret law taught by the dragon's shadow was different. Its principle was more like the method of refining corpses, but the material was not the corpse, but the soul. It only took a few days to refine an incarnation with the soul, and it could be put into actual combat. Even if 100 incarnations died, Suli would not lose a hair. After all, it was what Suli asked to resist nature's punishment. If one incarnation died, she would suffer the backfire, and the damage caused by the backfire was enough to kill Suli. If the inheritance of the dragon's shadow is correct, the incarnation's pneuma is the same as mine, and it can confuse the heaven. As long as I have enough avatars, I can delay the heavenly tribulation no matter how powerful it is. Suli's eyes flickered. She made up her mind and collected ghosts faster. When she got out of this place, it would not be so easy to collect the souls of ghosts. Although the souls of the human clan were also a kind of the souls of ghosts, if she killed too many people in Jojo region, it would inevitably be exposed and affect her plan. Kacha, in the dark and cold cave, the people of Ankue Valley, Tianhe sect, and Huangxing Hall moved forward slowly, keeping their distance and being alert. With benefits in front of them, they didn't dare to trust anyone but themselves. People from Xingtian Shrine disappeared as soon as they came in. Fang Mu's eyes were slightly gloomy, and he looked into the depths of the cave. From time to time, there was a sound like glass cracking. Everyone's faces were solemn, not daring to be careless. At this moment, a white figure flashed past everyone's eyes and quickly entered the cave. That's the true form of the ice demon. The fourth elder of Huangxing Hall recognized it first. Yin Xuedong's pretty face changed instantly, and she shouted, "Chase!" In fact, she didn't need to order. After the fourth elder said that, the people of the three major sects almost turned into shadows and chased to the depths at the same time. They all restrained themselves and didn't attack each other. Before catching the true form of the ice demon, any more fighting was futile. After a distance, there were 3 forks in the passage. Everyone stopped, but Chu Qingning threw himself into one of the holes without hesitation. Young lord. The old man who had been following Chu Qingning was very anxious. He couldn't care about anything else and also rushed in with others. Time is pressing. We can't let Ankue Valley get it first. Yin Xuedong said quickly. When she was about to throw herself into the hole where Chu Qingning entered, she suddenly saw an extremely faint white light flashing in the rightmost hole. She didn't have time to think much, and immediately changed her mind and took people into it. Fang Mu stood at the fork. He still looked calm and was not in a hurry. The Tianhe sect was the only righteous sect out of the 4 great sacred sects. The reason the Tianhe sect had sent him here was not because they were determined to get the ice demon, but because they wanted him to disrupt the actions of the other 3 sects when necessary. That way, they could form a good relationship with the greater demon. The white light kept flashing in the 3 holes, and Fang Mu frowned. He didn't know if it was his illusion, but he always felt that the 3 roads in front of him were all traps, and none of them really led to the ice demon's nest. Uncle Chen, are you there? He called in his heart and immediately got a response. What's the matter? Help me see where the source of the cracking sound is. The existence in the dark was silent for a moment, and then a slightly tired voice came. Boy, the source is on your left, about 300 meters away. Fang Mu pondered for a moment. In the puzzled eyes of many elders, he punched the ice wall on the left. Different from the hardness imagined, the ice wall instantly turned into ice chips flying all over the sky like tofu dregs, and a dark hidden hole appeared. Fang Mu's eyes lit up. Let's go. Shortly after he took people in, the wall on the right side of the passage was suddenly blasted open, and Zhuquan walked out expressionlessly. If you looked carefully, there was a trace of anger in it. Damn it, I was fooled. This ice demon is extremely cunning. I can't catch up with it at all. Zhuquan glanced at the other holes, and suddenly fixed her eyes on the hole where Fang Mu went in. There was no entrance here before. Who found it? Huangxing Hall, Ankue Valley. Or Tianhe sect? Zhu Chuan's face became gloomy. The original body of the ice demon is a beautiful snow fox. I want to catch it and offer it to Miss as a demon pet. It must not fall into the hands of others. Follow up. Zhu Quan was the personal mate of the disciple of the Fate Ancestor. Naturally, no one dared to disobey what she said. At the moment, she ignored her frozen stiff body and entered the passage together. Boy, you seem to have entered a strange area. It is very difficult for me to sense. The voice in his mind was even more tired. Fang Mu gently touched his eyebrows and let the consciousness fall asleep. He no longer needed guidance. What he saw in front of him was a frozen ancestral temple. In the courtyard of the ancestral temple, an ancient well exuded a faint blood light. The mouth of the well was only 1/10 of the size of the one outside. The ancient well outside is a virtual image. This is the real one. The elder beside Fang Mu said with a solemn expression, "It's so oppressive. Is it possible that the mighty demon is inside? A newborn mighty demon can't have a high intelligence. I'm afraid that this breath is undoubtedly emitted by the mighty demon. Then how do you explain the diversion outside?" The elders looked embarrassed. They couldn't come to a conclusion for a while, but they didn't dare to go down the well rashly. The yin qi here was far from what the fake well outside could compare with. Even their average cultivation was at the late stage of Huashan realm. They felt frightened. Whether it is true or not, we will know when we go down and have a look. Fang Mu stared at the ancient well and said. Before the elders had time to stop him, they heard a domineering shout suddenly coming from behind. Wait! This well was first discovered by our Xingtian shrine. No one is allowed to go down. Zhu Quan came with a group of disciples of Xingtian shrine. Facing the elders of Tianhe sect, she was not afraid at all. The elders of Tianhe sect changed their faces slightly. If they were the elders of Xingtian shrine, it would be fine. But these little kids dared to shout in front of them. Fang Mu narrowed his eyes and stood in front of the elders. "Zhu Quan, do you really think that you can act recklessly in front of me because you are favored by the master? Even if I kill you now, your master will not take revenge on Tianhe sect for you. You have to think clearly." Zhu Quan's pretty face was cold, but she didn't dare to really do anything out of line. She just snorted coldly, "Ice demon, my miss is determined to get it. Does your Tianhe sect want to go against Fate Ancestor?" Fang Mu suddenly chuckled, "Even you can use the banner of Fate Ancestor. The face of Fate Ancestor is really worthless." As soon as these words came out, the faces of the elders of Tianhe sect changed first before the people of Xingtian shrine said anything. "Young lord, be careful with your words. Fate Ancestor can't be offended." Zhu Quan was originally trembling with anger. Seeing that the elders of Tianhe sect automatically gave in, she felt comfortable and provoked. "Your Excellency, young lord, it seems that your fans are not as bold as you." Fang Mu's face became gloomy, and suddenly returned to normal. He stepped aside and said coldly, "If you don't want to go in, you can continue to wait here for the other two sects to come." "How about that?" Fang Mu's reaction was unexpected. Zhu Quan felt that she was dwarfed, and her heart was slightly blocked. But thinking of her master's order, she still snorted coldly and quickly led everyone down the well. "Young lord, when all the people of Xingtian shrine went down the well, a group of elders immediately gathered around, and they all looked ashamed. Fang Mu reached out to stop them, frowning and silent. Just now, the sleeping existence in his mind forcibly woke up again and sent him a message. "Boy, there is something hidden in Zhu Quan's shadow. You can't deal with it. Let her go down." At this moment, after Zhu Quan and others went down the well, they quickly found the secret passage at the top of the passage, but this passage had been covered by ice at the moment, so it was difficult to enter. Seeing this, Zhu Quan knelt down without hesitation, and put her forehead on the ground. She said respectfully, "Your Honor, please show up and remove the obstacles." As soon as she finished speaking, the shadow behind Zhu Quan and all the other young disciples skyrocketed and turned into another human form. After the form stabilized, the shadow behind Zhu Quan spoke in human language, "Useless. We even have to open the way by ourselves." As it said, the arms of all the figures instantly turned into a long spear. Without any movement, the long spear instantly rotated and turned into a dozen giant sharp cones piercing the ice. Boom! The deafening sound passed through the ice into the ears of every living creature on the ground at the moment. What's that sound? Yin Xuedong and others, who were still exploring aimlessly, immediately stopped and decisively turned to the source of the sound. Fang Mu felt the greatest shock, but he did not go down, because the voice in his mind was repeating tirelessly. Danger! Run! Chapter 473. Escape. Fang Mu was tense, but he didn't move. Young lord, the source of the sound is below. Halfway through his sentence, the elder beside him suddenly changed his expression and looked behind him vigilantly. Mu. Yin Xuedong appeared with people and said kindly, I have been doing useless work for a long time, but you have been here for a long time. Tell me, have you found anything? Fang Mu frowned and said in a low and distant voice, Holy girl Yin, you are too much. Yin Xuedong smiled and didn't care, since young lord feels uncomfortable, let's put it another way. In fact, your eldest brother, Fang Yuan, is also here. Fang Mu's pupils shrank slightly, and his heartbeat accelerated slightly. But he sneered and said, do you think I will believe you just because of your words? It seems that you have grown a lot after Fang Yuan left. I still remember that when we were separated 1,000 years ago, you were still crying and screaming. You were very depressed. Yin Xuedong's words were sincere and emotional, but it made Fang Mu more angry. Yin Xuedong. Don't be impatient. Yin Xuedong stopped smiling and became serious, your eldest brother is wholeheartedly for that person. Now the ice demon appears in the world. If the ice demon dies and the reincarnation opens, that person, it's impossible. Fang Mu interrupted her in a cold voice, it's impossible for a person whose soul is scattered to be in the reincarnation. But you also know. Yin Xuedong slightly raised her red lips, a person like your eldest brother will never miss even if there is only a slight possibility. I am sure that he is now in our 4 teams. Fang Mu was shocked, and his eyes were bright. Let's go. All the elders immediately followed him. By the way, holy girl Yin, it's impolite not to reciprocate. I advise you that this place is a unique dead end. Don't die here without getting anything. After saying this, Fang Mu left without looking back. All the elders behind Yin Xuedong smiled and looked at their saintess with a bit of worship in their eyes. Eliminating an opponent with just a few words was simply a godlike method. As for the words left by Fang Mu, no one cared. The 4th elder, who was an expert in divination, was right beside them. They had no reason to believe a young boy. On the other hand, Yin Xuedong's eyebrows furrowed slightly. The Tianhe sect was a righteous sect, and they didn't have much interest in the ice demon. Now that they had heard about the young master, their thoughts had long since flown away. She had never considered the Tianhe sect an opponent. But Fang Mu said that this place was a dead end. She pinched the jade pendant hanging on her neck with her fingertips. Sensing that it was intact, she felt a little relieved in her heart. She smiled sweetly and said, Young master of Ankoe Valley, are you willing to go with me? In the dark, Chu Qingning, with a pale face, strode over and grinned. My pleasure. Zhu Quan looked gloomily at Yin Xuedong and Chu Qingning coming together. Huangxing Hall and Ankoe Valley actually joined hands, which was not good news. Looks like we came at the right time. Chu Qingning smiled and showed his white teeth. He stared at the white fox, who was in a panic behind the transparent ice, with greed in his eyes. Ice demon, it's really easy to get it. Boy, get out of here quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for tearing you alive regardless of the face of Ankoe Valley. The leading black shadow turned his head, and his eyes flashed with anger. Chu Qingning was not afraid when he heard the words. Instead, he sneered, who do you think you are? You are neither a human nor a ghost. I don't know if you will be killed by your ugliness when you look in the mirror in the middle of the night. As soon as he said this, several black shadows immediately rushed over angrily. Yin Xuedong stepped back without a trace, and her eyes flashed with alertness and doubt. After Chu Qingning practiced the Dark Codex, his temperament changed greatly. Those more than a dozen black shadows were obviously not ordinary characters. She really didn't understand why Chu Qingning had to talk back at this time. Chu Qingning didn't hesitate at all when he saw this. He smiled and stretched out his hand to grab the black shadow's arm. But at this moment, boom! The restless white fox let out a sharp howl, and the original fine crack in the ancient well expanded to the size of a fist in the blink of an eye. The white fox was overjoyed and immediately rushed into the crack. Oh, no, the ice demon escaped. Everyone's face changed slightly. The black shadow that had attacked Chu Qingning suddenly turned back and bombarded the ice with all its strength. Chu Qingning, Yin Xuedong, what are you waiting for? If you let the ice demon escape, no one will get any benefits. Zhu Quan propped up her tired body and roared with a livid face. Yin Xuedong's eyes flashed. Zhu Quan was not in a good state at the moment. The black shadows that parasitized on them obviously consumed their vitality. Shengtian Shrine and the Devil's Doctrine are really a group of people with no bottom line. This thought flashed in Yin Xuedong's mind, but on the surface, he had bombarded the ice without hesitation. At least Zhu Quan was right. This ice demon had great potential. It made such a big noise when it was just born. If it escaped, it would not only be a loss. When it grew up in the future, it would be a great threat. Su Li put away the soul in her hand. Suddenly, she felt something and looked up. She saw that the sky, which originally had only a crack, was cracked densely, like a tattered rag. The small mysterious realm won't last long. I still have at least 50,000 souls to recover. Su Li felt it was a pity, but she was already satisfied. The souls in Black Lotus Ring were at least enough for her to make hundreds of external incarnations. Black Lotus looked at the souls in the space of his ring and couldn't wait to pounce on them. But he also knew that these souls had been sealed for too long and had lost the spirituality he needed most. Even if he swallowed all of them, he might not recover much. It was more reliable to wait for Su Li to help him collect. At least there were still many ghost practitioners in Ghost Region. Taking advantage of this chaos, he could definitely absorb a lot. Crack, crack, the crack was getting bigger and bigger. Su Li could even faintly see the ancient well full of cracks through the sky. She stopped completely and closed her eyes to sense the connection with the ancestral land of the aristocracy. But it didn't take long for her to sense it. She heard a crack and opened her eyes to see a white fox falling in front of her. When the white fox saw that there was someone in the secret realm, it was furious. Its crystal eyes were full of irritation and uneasiness. Its tail was raised high, and a bone-chilling chill spread from its feet in an instant. It rushed to Su Li. Huh? The chill I sensed was made by you, little guy. Su Li looked at the frozen ice layer under her feet. With a slight shake, the ice layer shattered. The white fox suddenly became more manic and was about to launch a second attack. But before it launched, its feet became soft and it fell to the ground. Dark red blood flowed along its stomach. Its body was very fragile. It had been injured since it fell from such a high place. Whimper, the white fox whimpered and looked at the sky full of cracks. Its gem-like crystal eyes revealed sadness and despair. Why? Why did so many people want to kill it? It was just born and couldn't control the spread of the ice. It didn't mean it. Suddenly, it felt that it was wrapped by a mass of softness, and a warm breath poured into its body. It was so comfortable, it closed its eyes comfortably and fell asleep. Hey, Master, you actually chose to save it? Black Lotus looked at Su Li in surprise, as if he knew her for the first time. He just made it clear that if she ate this little thing, the nature's punishment that Su Li faced was likely to be directly reduced to a level and would no longer be a threat to her. Su Li glanced at Black Lotus and ignored him. While communicating with the ancestral land of the Ghost Clan, she ran the Ghost Valley meditation direction to heal the little white fox. It was indeed her impulse to save the white fox, but she didn't regret it. The life of the little white fox was so similar to her previous life. There was nothing wrong, but she had to bear a lot of dangers. She had been ruined, but the little white fox met her. Several hours passed in the blink of an eye, and the sky had been mostly cracked. The figures outside the sky flickered, and all kinds of malice poured in. The white fox instantly woke up. What came into view was a pair of bright and beautiful eyes. The little fox had never seen such gentle eyes. Chapter 474. Ling Xian's smile disappeared under the veil. Although Zhu Chuan's life and death didn't matter, the black slave given to her by the master was in her body, but now it was killed by this mysterious woman. Her eyes were cold for a moment, and then softened. She chuckled softly, "Since your strength is worthy of this ice demon, I will give it to you. I only hope that when we meet next time, you can show your true face so that I can get to know you." After that, she turned around and left. Her subordinates also ignored the death of Zhu Quan, and left with Ling Xian in the blink of an eye. Su Li's face was slightly gloomy. She thought about it again and again, but still didn't catch up. Although the power she controlled by the collapse of the small mysterious realm was powerful, it was not enough to kill everyone. If Ling Xian was provoked by her and took the initiative to attack, she still had a chance to kill her. But this woman ran away without saying anything. If she continued to attack, it was hard to guarantee that the other three sects would not swarm to her. Well, those who should die will die eventually. I don't need this time. Su Li nodded in her heart, and then her eyebrows stretched. She flew to the crack with the little white fox. Yin Xuedong and the other two people were angry when they saw that she was so arrogant, but no one stopped her. Su Li's instant kill just now was enough to prove that she was difficult to deal with. Although Zhu Chuan's cultivation was not high, only in the late stage of Yuanying realm, the black slave in her body was at least in the early stage of nature's test. "Young lord, should we let this woman take away the ice demon? No matter how powerful she is only one person, and the cultivation in the early stage of nature's test is not difficult to defeat." The fourth elder beside Yin Xuedong was very unwilling. She had worked hard for so long, but the ice demon was robbed by a little girl with no background. If this matter was spread, how could she put her face? Yin Xuedong stopped the fourth elder from continuing. She looked at Su Li rising into the sky, and her beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. Was it her? It couldn't be her. Fang Mu pursed his lips and looked at Su Li's back blankly. Even if they entered the reincarnation mirror for various reasons, it was wrong, it was wrong. Did they have a chance to atone? TSK, it's just a female cultivator who is deliberately mystifying things, yet she managed to scare you guys. Chu Qingning's sneer suddenly sounded harsh and unpleasant. Yin Xuedong and Fang Mu came to their senses at the same time. Fang Mu said coldly with a haze in his eyes, "If you want that ice demon, go get it yourself. My Sky River sect will not get involved in this mess." No matter where that mysterious woman came from, the ice demon was very close to her, which was enough to show that she had no ill intentions. Since she hadn't fallen into the hands of the other three sects, his mission could be considered completed. "Ha, the Fang family is as timid as ever," Chu Qingning said and looked at Yin Xuedong, but the latter also looked away and said faintly, "If young Lord Chu can really get it, our Huangxing Hall will never intervene." She was not as detached as Fang Mu, but she still had a brain. This barren little mystery realm was right under the ice demon's nest, and the mysterious woman seemed to have been here since the beginning. Judging from her attire, she didn't look like someone from the ancient times. It was very likely that she had entered the little mystery realm alone before them. In fact, this shocking commotion was caused by her. Yin Xuedong shuddered just thinking about it. The strength of that woman was definitely not as simple as passing nature's test. If she acted impulsively, it was likely to bring big trouble to Huangxing Hall. A black light flashed in Chu Qingning's eyes, and he smiled coldly. Holy Virgin Yin, you should keep your words. Otherwise, I will definitely kill you even if I destroy the Dark Codex. Yin Xuedong frowned uncomfortably. Before she spoke, she saw Chu Qingning's feet touch the ground, and instantly turned into a black light shooting to Su Li's back. Su Li sensed something. She turned around and calmly raised her hand. A transparent barrier appeared out of thin air. Chu Qingning grinned grimly. His arms flashed with black light, and two huge sickles slashed to Su Li. Clang. In an instant, a heavy echo resounded through the world. Chu Qingning's face suddenly changed. Chu Qingning, do you dare to attack me? Su Li looked at him calmly. Chu Qingning felt cold inside, and his pupils contracted. The surging pressure of the other party made him tremble, and he even had the illusion that he would be crushed into pieces in an instant. Escape. He didn't care about others' eyes, and was about to retreat immediately. However, Su Li broke the barrier herself, and her fingertips pinched his sickle blade lightly. The speed was obviously not fast, but he just couldn't avoid it. Are you going to escape without answering my question? Su Li's pure black eyes flashed with a deep light, which made people unconsciously fall into it. Chu Qingning increasingly felt the horror of Su Li, and his tone was difficult. Senior. Before he finished speaking, Su Li suddenly narrowed her eyes, and her fingertips exerted force, and the huge sickle was broken. The blood on Chu Qingning's face instantly faded, and he spat out blood and flew down. People of Ankou Valley and others thought that the young lord was in a stalemate with Su Li, but they didn't expect that the outcome was decided in the blink of an eye. Their faces changed greatly, and they were about to fly up to help. However, a shadow was faster than them. Everyone only saw a gray shadow flashed in front of them, and Chu Qingning flew backward into the arms of an old man in a gray robe. It's the third elder. The third elder came in person, and the demon girl can't escape. The old man in a gray robe first temporarily stabilized Chu Qingning's injury, and then he vigilantly looked at Su Li, who was high above. Under the astonishment of the elders of Ankou Valley, he saluted to Su Li. I, young Lord Gu, have no intention to offend you, but I have recently practiced a strange skill, and I still can't control it. After that, he retreated with Chu Qingning in fear. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she immediately thought of a practice method. 7-feather evil skill. Chu Qingning was not a member of the Yinma cult. Where did he get this practice method? Or was there a high-level member of the Yinma cult in Ankou Valley? Ow ow ow. She was distracted for a moment, and the little white fox in her arms suddenly stood up and screamed. A thin layer of ice immediately covered Su Li. In the next moment, a snow-colored stripe of several meters thick burst out from the casual practitioners of Ankou Valley, and Su Li was drowned in the blink of an eye. After the white light, there was no sound of Su Li. Only the little white fox fell in the air and whined. That female practitioner is dead? Such a shocking change was unexpected to everyone. Ahem, a white-haired old man in casual practitioner's clothes slowly walked out. Every time he took a step, the surrounding practitioners retreated a few steps, and the terrifying breath spread. Everyone saw that it was he who killed the invincible mysterious woman with one move. Grand Elder of Han Sect. The old man in a gray robe of Ankou Valley recognized the identity of this person at a glance, and looked shocked. Although he had the cultivation of the late stage of nature's test, those who could serve as the Grand Elder in the Holy Sect were at least at the early stage of Deshang realm, which was already the existence of the junior emperor of the human clan. To go through the test to Huashan realm, one must go through the test of thunder. No one knew how many people died under the thunder. He was afraid that he could not survive one move from the Grand Elder of Han Sect. The deterrence brought by such a strong person was almost destructive. In the blink of an eye, a large open space appeared around the old man. No one expected that an ice demon would lead out a strong person of this level. Yin Xuedong and Fang Mu stared at the sky in a daze. Did the female practitioner with a temperament very similar to Su Li die like this? Ha, I just need an ice demon to make medicine. This little thing came at the right time. The white-haired old man reached out to grab the falling little white fox. The little white fox's eyes were full of fierce light, and even with hatred, it made a childish howl at the white-haired old man. Fang Mu couldn't bear it, and subconsciously moved forward, but he was stopped by the elder behind him. "Young lord, calm down. This matter is out of control. Even if we take out our trump cards, we are definitely not the opponent of the Grand Elder of Han sect." Just as the white-haired old man was about to grab the fur of the little white fox, the smile on the old man's face suddenly froze. A white hand appeared out of nowhere and resisted the withered hand like bark. The little white fox returned to the soft embrace. The white-haired old man's eyes widened slightly, and he wanted to withdraw his hand. But the young woman opposite seemed to turn into a world, so heavy that he couldn't even withdraw his hand. "Who are you? Don't you know that this world is my territory? You wantonly crossed the boundary. Aren't you afraid of the punishment of the Fate Ancestor?" The white-haired old man's face became cold, and he didn't mention anything about robbing the ice demon. Su Li calmly pacified the little white fox who was still angry. She looked calm and her chuckle fell into everyone's ears. "Ha ha ha. Old man, you are a junior emperor of the human clan. Are you proud of hiding in the dark and making a sneak attack?" After that, Su Li's eyes narrowed slightly, and her killing intent was revealed. The white-haired old man's face remained unchanged. He pinched an ice flower with one hand and threw it to Su Li's face. The ice flower left the old man's hand and instantly turned into a burning ice flame. The air was burned and sizzled. The gray-robed old man's eyes widened. It was the secret method of Han sect. Ice flower flame. The Grand Elder of Han sect actually used a killing move as soon as he made a move. She held the little white fox in one hand and grabbed his hand in the other. How could she resist? Sensing the dangerous breath of the ice flower, Su Li finally looked a little serious, and her hair fluttered without wind. In an instant, the wind and clouds in the broken small mysterious realm changed. She didn't make any movement, but the ice flower flame was directly extinguished. Seeing this scene, the Grand Elder of Han sect didn't understand, and his face suddenly changed. "You are a ghost." Su Li didn't give him another chance to speak. With a move of her mind, countless fragments of the small mysterious realm gathered and turned into a tornado that swept the Grand Elder of Han sect. The golden body at the early stage of Deshang realm was smashed in the blink of an eye, revealing the golden bones in it. "Ah!" The screams echoed between heaven and earth, and there was a dead silence around. Seeing the Grand Elder of Han sect being punished by dismemberment, everyone was pale and their scalps were numb. "Stop! If you kill me, Han sect will be absolutely irreconcilable with you, and I will chase you to the ends of the earth." The Grand Elder of Han sect was full of pain. Half of the skin and flesh on his face disappeared, and his silver white hair was cut off, but his mouth was still very hard. Su Li turned her eyes and looked at the Grand Elder who was struggling in the vortex of fragments. She pretended to be surprised and smiled. "It turns out to be the Grand Elder of Han sect. That's great. I was worried about how to collect interest from Han sect. You send yourself to me, which saves me a trip." As soon as she finished speaking, the power of the small mysterious realm was added, and the fragments suddenly became more fierce, leaving traces on the golden bones. The Grand Elder of Han sect widened his eyes, and fear gushed out from the bottom of his heart. He no longer cared about his face and cried, "Don't kill me. I am willing to be your servant forever." "Really?" Su Li tilted her head. Just as a hope rose in the heart of the Grand Elder of Han sect, he saw the woman suddenly shook her head and sighed, "Forget it, I'm too tired. You'd better go to hell." Boom! The corner of the small mysterious realm rushed straight to the Grand Elder of Han sect, and directly smashed him into meat paste, leaving nothing behind. "Devil, you are a devil!" The last scream of the Grand Elder of Han sect echoed between heaven and earth. A bone-piercing chill filled everyone's heart. Chapter 475. A quasi-martial emperor has fallen. The gray-robed elder looked at the golden minced meat on the ground, and the fear that had been dormant in his heart for many years suddenly woke up. His mind was in a mess, and he couldn't think for a while. Even he was like this, the rest were even worse. They stood absent-mindedly like sculptures. As soon as the great elder of Han sect died, the little white fox immediately calmed down. It rushed to Su Li's shoulder and looked around with sparkling eyes. Su Li glanced at the black lotus that took away the soul of the great elder of Han sect, and turned to leave. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. There was a figure in front of her. His thin figure was shrouded in a large casual practitioner's robe, and he looked extremely embarrassed. Under the jade-colored bone mask, he stared at Su Li's face with deep eye sockets, full of killing intent. Su Li smiled, and Ling Li was at a loss. She had imagined many scenes of meeting Ling Li again in Qingshui Circle, but she didn't expect it would be at this moment. "Do you want to kill me?" Su Li's voice was flat, and a pair of clear eyes seemed to penetrate Ling Li's body and see inside his body. "With the sword in your body?" Ling Li's pupils shrank suddenly, and he stepped back subconsciously. Could she sense the Lihan sword? It was impossible. He was the monument keeper. "I heard that you have a son, who is about 1,000 years old now," Su Li said casually, but her eyes were fixed on Ling Li's reaction. Ling Li was shocked, and immediately thought of many things. Only the trusted followers of the Lord of Xingtian Palace knew the existence of Su Buwang. Was this woman also from Xingtian Palace? No, she just killed the people of Fate Ancestor. She shouldn't be. His mind was in a mess for a while. He carefully recalled the trap he made in the past, and there were no loopholes. Who leaked the news? No matter who it was, this woman had something to do with the Lord of Xingtian Palace. The fewer people knew the existence of Wang, the safer he would be. Ling Li made up his mind, and his eyes were firm. With a thought, a sword sound came from his body in an instant. The Lihan sword trembled and began to appear in his hand. However, this process was abruptly interrupted halfway through. Su Li's pretty face was slightly cold. She bent her fingers, and the remaining 30% of the small mysterious realm instantly collapsed into countless fragments, covering Ling Li. The power of the broken world sucked, and the rules of Qingshui Circle were instantly covered. Ling Li groaned, and the half of the sword blade in his hand turned into powder again. At this moment, Su Li suddenly narrowed her eyes, and a red line appeared in front of her. When the sword returned to Ling Li's body, the end of the red line was immediately missing. Looking at Ling Li, who was shrouded by the fragments of the small mysterious realm, he could not breathe as if he was drowning. Su Li was suddenly very angry. Although she had already warned herself that Su Li had died long ago, at this moment, the anger in her heart was like a volcanic eruption, which was irresistible. She stepped forward and appeared in front of Ling Li in a flash. She grabbed Ling Li's collar and her eyes were cold. The words full of resentment seemed to be squeezed from her teeth. "Ling Li, do you really want me to die? You're willing to sacrifice your lifespan to send me to hell?" Ling Li was shocked, and his scattered pupils condensed again. He gritted his teeth and couldn't say a word, but he just mouthed what he wanted to say. "Even if I am cut into pieces, I will never let anyone touch my son." Su Li was stunned suddenly and let go of Ling Li's collar. Most of the rioting fragments of the small mysterious realm also gathered and floated beside Su Li, like a pavilion in the air. Ling Li only felt that his body was relaxed. Seeing Su Li in a trance, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the sky without saying a word. Even if he had many doubts about the identity of the mysterious woman in his heart. But for the sake of Wang, he couldn't take risks. Su Li watched Ling Li leave and did not stop him. Her calm eyes faintly showed a trace of gentleness and surprise. At least, he didn't seem to be as cold-blooded and ruthless as the rumor said. At least, she knew that her son was still alive, not killed by Ling Li himself as the rumor said. "Master, there is more than one Grand Elder in Han sect. Let's run." Black Lotus held the soul of the Grand Elder of Han's sect and shivered. He only devoured a part of the memory of the soul, but he knew that the strength of Han's sect was much more terrifying than he imagined. There was more than a junior emperor behind the holy sect. Suli nodded and glanced at the frightened people behind her. Then she turned and floated away. The little white fox looked at the world of ice and snow and opened its mouth to take a breath. The ice and snow all over the sky poured into its stomach like a bottomless pit. Yin Xuedong and others immediately felt that the biting chill began to subside immediately, and the temperature began to warm up. But those who were frozen to death could no longer be resurrected. Fang Mu glanced at Chu Qingning, who was unconscious in the arms of the third elder of Ankoe Valley, and looked at the sky that gradually cleared up. Was this a natural disaster or a man-made disaster? Who could say for sure? Suddenly, he inadvertently saw a familiar figure, but the figure left extremely fast and disappeared into the sky in the blink of an eye. Eldest brother! Fang Mu shouted and chased after him without saying a word. Although the people of Tianhe sect didn't see it, when they heard the news of the first young lord, they couldn't sit still and followed him. After Suli left everyone's sight, the little white fox spent half a quarter to absorb the cold air of the entire ghost region into its body, and then fell into a deep sleep. Suli put it into Tsang Lei's cave, and then changed into a casual practitioner's clothes and changed her face. She quietly mixed into the casual practitioner's team and entered through the entrance of the small mysterious realm of Han sect. Although the casual practitioners around saw Suli was a little unfamiliar, they gathered here as a motley crew, so no one looked for trouble. They just wanted to leave this place of trouble as soon as possible. A grand elder of Han sect died, so it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't vent their anger on them. Suli landed on a mountain top and communicated with Black Lotus for a moment. Then she grabbed a female disciple of Han sect to replace her and went to the treasure house of Han sect. With the soul of the Grand Elder of Han sect in her hand, there was no secret in the entire Han sect for her. Halfway through, Suli passed the mountain range that welcomed guests and suddenly stopped. Her eyes were fixed on a flushed face. I said, I didn't steal anything from you. Don't go too far. Su Buwang was furious and explained with a red face, but the two disciples of Han's sect in front of him didn't mean to let him go. You are just a nonentity in Jindan realm. How dare you quibble? We have observed you for several days. The blood-colored treasure is clearly the red soul treasure that was stolen from our peak a few days ago. Yes. Little thief, you dare to go up the mountain to steal when the gate of my sect is open. You are really tired of living. I heard from my master that the ice demon has fallen into the hands of the Grand Master of my sect. Your elder hasn't come back yet. I'm afraid that he has died outside, right? Su Buwang's face changed slightly, and he couldn't help but scold, nonsense. Uncle Fang is so powerful. How could he die? As soon as these words came out, the older disciple of Han's sect immediately sneered. Ha ha ha. It's rare to be naive. Junior fellow apprentice, open his stomach. I saw the blood stone hidden in his body 2 days ago. Su Buwang was horrified and immediately retreated. But his strength was limited. How could he be the opponent of 2 practitioners in Yuanying realm? He was caught in their hands in an instant. The flying sword stabbed straight into his abdomen. The cold light flashed, and he closed his eyes in horror. Puff, the imagined pain did not come. Su Buwang's mind was blank for a moment. Suddenly he felt that his face was wet, and then he remembered to open his eyes. With this force, the 2 headless corpses fell backward. Ah! Su Buwang screamed in fright and retreated while trembling. Did I kill them? The corpses fell to the ground. Su Buwang saw that there was a woman who looked younger than him standing behind the corpses. She was looking at him with a very strange look. Master, the pneuma of this kid and your previous life seems to have a deep connection. Black Lotus, who was gnawing the soul of the Grand Elder of Han's sect, did not forget to come out to remind Suli. Suli pressed him back into the ring space. Looking at Su Buwang's facial features, which were 60% similar to hers in her previous life, she couldn't help smiling. He had grown so tall. "What's your name?" Su Li suddenly said. Her voice was ethereal, like the tinkling of spring water. But there were two headless corpses behind her, which really aroused Su Buwang's interest and appreciation. This woman was so murderous. She was not a kind person. Su Buwang was racking his brains to deal with it. Suddenly, Su Li's eyes narrowed. She pulled off the clothes on one of the corpses and forced Su Buwang to change them. Then she put away the two corpses directly and carried him away quickly. Where are you taking me? I'm still waiting for my elder to come back. If he can't find me, he will definitely be angry. Su Buwang was held by a pair of invisible hands. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stop moving forward. Su Li frowned when she saw Su Buwang's embarrassed look. What had Ling Li taught him all these years? Why didn't he have any alertness to deal with danger? When she thought of this, a red light suddenly enlarged rapidly in front of her. She narrowed her eyes and reached out to catch it. When she opened her hand, she saw a blood-colored round stone. It was this thing. Su Li's memory drifted away, and she instantly thought of the origin of this thing. In the reincarnation mirror, she killed Lin Yanqing and got this blood stone from his body. Unexpectedly, it was inherited by her son. Looks like you've learned a thing or two over the years. At the very least, your sneak attack is quite decent. Su Li chuckled. Su Buwang's eyes widened. He took off his disguise and panicked. This stone had been in his body since he was born. When he was 18 years old, he barely drew it out of his body. Although he couldn't see the secret in it, except for him, no matter what cultivation the person held in his hand, he would be sucked dry in an instant. This stone had always been used as his trump card, but now there was an enemy who could be completely immune to it. Su Li finally got a moment alone with her son, and she couldn't bear to continue to scare him. After leaving a mark on the blood stone, she put it back into her body and said casually, "Don't show this thing to others at will. If the master of Xingtian Shrine knows it, he will inevitably rob it." Su Buwang carefully sensed the blood stone that returned to his body. After finding that there was no discomfort, he breathed a sigh of relief. But when he heard the second half of Su Li's words, he was inevitably afraid. Fortunately, he had a low status in Xingtian Shrine and had no chance to meet the master of Xingtian Palace. Feeling Su Li's kindness, Su Buwang was slightly relieved. He blinked his eyes and asked cautiously as if he met Fang Yuan for the first time, "Little brother." Su Buwang. "Senior, where are we going?" Chapter 476. Su Li stopped and stared at Su Buwang, who was at a loss. "I asked you to forget me, and you named him Buwang." Su Buwang found that Su Li was looking at him with a very strange look again. He laughed awkwardly and thought about the words just now, but he didn't find anything wrong. Just when he wanted to ask, Su Li suddenly withdrew her gaze and continued to walk to the depths of Han sect. "Senior, I'm going to get something, and I'll leave after I get it." "What is it?" After Su Buwang asked, he felt that he had made a mistake and wanted to slap himself. "Why did you talk too much? What if you were killed if you knew too much?" He was nervous, and a look of regret appeared on his face. Su Li glanced at him with a faint smile and said softly, "A thing that belongs to me." Su Li was very fast, and Su Buwang followed her unimpeded all the way to the forbidden area where the Grand Elder of Han sect lived. Su Buwang was frightened at first, but he calmed down after arriving at the forbidden area. On the way, they met many powerful practitioners of Han sect, but those people seemed to see him and the mysterious woman and let them enter the forbidden area of Han sect. Black Lotus. Su Li called in her heart and asked him to continue to show the way. Although there were various means to defend the forbidden area, Black Lotus had absorbed the memory, so all the tactical matrices and prohibitions were not obstacles. "Master, there is only one old man who is practicing in isolation in this forbidden area, and the rest have left. Most of them went to track down your whereabouts in order to kill their grand elder." Black Lotus's words were full of excitement. Those powerful figures of Han's sect could never imagine that Suli not only did not escape, but also went deep into their base camp. Suli raised her eyebrows, took off the ring of reincarnation mirror from her waist, and threw it casually. The mirror ring immediately lit up with a white light and quickly rushed to one of the palaces. Suli immediately followed. Su Buwang also followed, and his eyes were bright. Although the place where he grew up was extraordinary, it was the first time for him to have such a novel experience. Although he liked to pretend to be stupid and careless, it did not mean that he was stupid. The woman who brought him in dared to steal things from the forbidden area of Han's sect. It was too exciting. The reincarnation mirror stopped in front of a palace and kept trembling, but it still didn't mean to communicate with Suli. Even if it had this ability for a long time, the grievances of the previous life were still there. It didn't know how to face Suli, who had become its real master. Fortunately, Suli did not force him. Standing in front of the palace for a moment, she got the handprint of starting the palace from Black Lotus. A moment later, a gap was silently pushed open in the palace. Suli pulled Su Buwang and rushed into it without saying a word. They went straight to the treasure room in the deepest part of the palace. "This is that unlucky bastard's bedroom, there are no traps. I think he never thought that he would die, hee." Black Lotus hugged the divine soul and laughed happily. Suli didn't bother to pay attention to it. She opened the door of the adytum, and the nimbus that had been sealed for many years instantly surged out. Su Buwang took a deep breath and suddenly felt like a fairy. The bottleneck in his body, which had not moved for a long time, actually had a tendency to loosen. When he saw the dazzling array of cultivation treasures, elixirs, rare materials, and celestial crystals in the room, he almost drooled. He had lived for more than 1,000 years, but he had never seen so many treasures. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to take any of them. Su Buwang glanced at Suli, who was already collecting treasures, and sighed secretly. "Not bad, not bad. This old bastard has lived for 7,000 or 8,000 years, and his collection is quite rich. Do you see the universe rings on the 2 shelves? They are all advanced materials for forging magic treasures, which are priceless." Suli immediately went forward to check the 2 rings. After finding no tracing mark, she threw them into Tsanglei's cave. Treasures like the secret vault of the Grand Elder of a sect were all private collections, but she still didn't dare to be careless. She checked every treasure, and threw them into the space of Black Lotus if she was not sure. According to Black Lotus's temperament, there must be a lot of good things hidden in the ring space. Unfortunately, if she didn't force him into a desperate situation, she could only see those things when her cultivation was stronger. An hour later, the stone room was 80% empty and became bare. There was no longer the previous jewelry. There were only a few scattered jade boxes on the elixir shelf that had not been checked. Su Buwang sighed again and scolded himself for being a coward. He didn't dare to take any of them. Suli opened a jade box casually, and the fragrance came to her nose. She took the ammunition in her hand and sniffed it carefully. Chitian elixir. Although the name was ordinary, it was well known in the cultivation circle. This elixir couldn't increase cultivation, but it could make up for congenital deficiencies and greatly improve a person's cultivation aptitude. For those who were possessed by the devil and destroyed their foundation, it was a holy elixir to repair their foundation. This old bastard actually has such an elixir, but I didn't find it in his memory. It's really weird. Suli shook her head slightly and responded in her heart, judging from the different refining methods and uneven quality of the elixirs collected by him, I know that he is not proficient in refining elixirs, and may even be born with elixir blindness. He can only say that he is unlucky that he doesn't know the elixir in front of him. After responding to this, Suli suddenly turned around and flicked her fingers. The elixir turned into a light and shot into Su Buwang's mouth. Su Buwang only felt pain in his throat, and swallowed his saliva subconsciously. The elixir melted in the water and immediately turned into a warm current flowing into his abdomen. What did I eat? Su Buwang was stunned. He touched his belly and felt warm and indescribably comfortable. But he was still flustered. Who knew whether that thing was good or bad? Su Li checked the remaining elixirs and found that there was no one suitable for Su Buwang. She put them all away and turned around with a rare stern look. You have to be smart enough to live in the cultivation circle. How can you behave so sloppily? It was just an elixir just now. If I sneak attack you, what will the consequences be? Su Buwang couldn't raise his head and had no way to refute her. He also felt strange. Even when he was with Uncle Fong, he still had a little vigilance in his heart. But when he was with this woman, he always relaxed unconsciously. Could it be that this was some kind of secret skill of subtle influence? Su Buwang suddenly panicked and subconsciously stayed further away from Su Li. Su Li looked at his movements, pursed her lips and tilted her head in confusion. Black Lotus, was I very fierce just now? Black Lotus also looked puzzled. Probably not. Then why is he so afraid of me? Black Lotus rolled his eyes. I am not a roundworm in your son's stomach. How do I know why? Why don't you ask him directly? Su Li glanced at him coldly and said lightly, Reincarnation mirror, have you finished eating? Let's go to the next one. Whoosh! The ring of reincarnation mirror, which was much thicker, immediately flew out. There were still some fragments stuck on it, which had not been completely digested. The spirit of reincarnation mirror suddenly felt that it was not bad to follow Su Li. At least it didn't have to do anything. It just needed to eat the fragments when it woke up. Otherwise, should I take the initiative to offer myself and recognize her? The little beast hesitated and suddenly remembered that its body was exactly the same as when it killed Su Li in the previous life. Its ears drooped again and it slowly flew out. We don't have much time. We can only choose another palace to break in. Damn donkey, look carefully. Which palace has the most fragments? As soon as the thought of Black Lotus was transmitted, the reincarnation mirror whizzed and flew to a huge palace that was several times larger than before and surrounded by fairy air, buzzing and trembling. Su Li looked through the palace and saw the horrible figure sitting inside. Her face suddenly darkened and she grabbed reincarnation mirror. This one won't work. In the end, reincarnation mirror still chose a second-level palace. Su Li took a slight breath and threw a protective tactical matrix to Su Buwang. A flying sword, a magic instrument just obtained from the treasure house, appeared in her hand. She reached out to hold the hilt of the sword and closed her eyes gently. Su Buwang immediately saw the power of Numa and blood surging behind her, and the sound was buzzing, as if there was a blood dragon roaring. After a moment of accumulation, she suddenly opened her eyes and chopped down with the flying sword held high. Boom! The main hall collapsed and became a ruin. No matter how many forbidden tactical matrices were in it, they all turned into nothingness under this move. Su Buwang gritted his teeth and covered his ears, but his earholes were still shaken and bleeding. However, at this moment, he didn't care about the pain. He just stared at the destroyed palace with his eyes wide open. So powerful. Before he had time to sigh, he saw a black shadow flash in the ruins, and he was taken away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Hanging reincarnation mirror, which was still digesting the fragments, on her waist, Su Li took a step and crossed a few miles. She left the range of Han sect in the blink of an eye, but she still did not slow down. There was always a Numa of Junior Emperor behind her. After a few breaths, Su Li had reached the edge of the ghost region. She glanced at Su Buwang, who had been in a daze because of the wind caused by the extreme speed. She immediately paused and unfolded Song Lei's cave, sending him to one of the stone beds. After doing this, the Numa behind her had approached within 3 miles. Su Li's face became cold, and the all-spirits tactics covered her face again. Countless fragments of the small mysterious realm appeared beside her out of thin air. As she stretched out her hand, a torrent like the end of the world surged in an instant. The old man in purple, who was chasing Suli, changed his face instantly when he saw this. He turned around and fled without saying a word. Seeing this scene, he knew who he was chasing. That was the demon girl who killed his senior fellow apprentice in one move. His strength was not even half of his senior fellow apprentice's. If he went up, he would be killed. He kept fleeing and didn't dare to look back. When he returned to the range of Han's sect, he sensed that the fragments of the small world chasing behind him faded away. After surviving a disaster, he took a long breath, and his back was wet. At this time, a cold voice sounded in his ear. This time, Han's sect offended me as a warning. Don't force me to kill more people. If you want to make peace, go back and ask your old ancestor, and he will know. At the end of the sentence, the voice lingered. The old man in purple looked pale. That demon girl turned out to be a figure of the same era as the old ancestor. Senior fellow apprentice, you are dead, but you also caused a big trouble for the sect. Chapter 477. Throwing a smoke bomb to Han's sect, Suli didn't care about the consequences. She flew to a nearby town and woke up Su Buwang, who was still in a coma. Su Buwang only felt that he had a dream. He dreamed that he went to an immortal's cave. The details in the stone room were very clear, as if it were real. But the dream was interrupted by Su Li's awakening before long. He got up from the bed and rubbed his head, which still hurt a little. He couldn't help but look at Su Li with complaints, but he didn't dare to say anything excessive. Senior, where are we? Su Li pointed out of the window. Su Buwang saw the plaque of the town at the same level as the second floor of the inn, and couldn't help but cover his eyes. It was so shameful. As wise as I am, how could I ask such an idiotic question? I'm leaving. Do you have the carrier rune of your elder? Su Buwang took out a jade rune readily and said with a smile, of course. Senior, you are leaving now. Where are you going? Su Li glanced at him coldly and didn't answer. Su Buwang felt numb on his scalp. He couldn't wait to slap himself. Why couldn't he control his mouth? This female senior was really evil. She always made him let down his guard unconsciously. Damn it. He thought about it, but he didn't slow down and sent a message to Fang Yuan. After a while, Su Li's gaze, which was staring out of the window, suddenly froze. Then she took a deep look at Su Buwang, and her body disappeared like smoke. Senior, Su Buwang murmured softly. Although he only spent half a day with Su Li, he didn't know why he was a little reluctant in his heart. At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly appeared beside him. Who are you calling? Su Buwang was suddenly shocked. He turned his head and saw Fang Yuan. The shock on his face eased, and he said helplessly, Uncle Fang, you finally come. I almost lost my life in this half a day. Fang Yuan looked at Su Buwang carefully and found that he was not injured. He was slightly relieved. I was delayed by something. What happened to you? Su Buwang immediately told him what he had encountered, but he did not find that the more Fang Yuan listened, the more unstable his expression was. Finally, there was a little excitement in his eyes. He walked to the place where Su Li sat before and sat down slowly. Thinking of the person's voice and smile, he picked up the still warm teacup and looked at the half-eaten peanuts on the plate. For a moment, he was in a trance. If he hadn't been delayed by Fang Mu, wouldn't he have been able to see her? If they weren't connected by blood, how could she sense Wang Er's location? If it weren't for his safety, she wouldn't have taken him out of the Han school and settled him down in this mortal town, regardless of her own situation. No. For the sake of Wang Er's safety, she would not leave immediately. Fang Yuan suddenly shivered and rushed out of the window in a flash, which made Su Buwang at a loss. Has Uncle Fang lost his mind? Fang Yuan hadn't used his full strength for a long time. Fortunately, this town was just a mortal town. Even if he wantonly scanned hundreds of miles with his spiritual awareness, he didn't alarm anyone. No, not even a practitioner. It's impossible. Fang Yuan stood in the nothingness, but his expression was not as calm as usual. Instead, he was full of uneasiness and tension. He opened his mouth, but the name that had been hovering in his mind for thousands of years was stuck in his throat. He couldn't say it. Taking a deep breath, Fang Yuan managed to calm down. His voice was transmitted to the surroundings through his spiritual awareness, which was extremely hoarse. Su Li, is that you? I know that you're definitely still alive. How could someone like you leave so easily? Don't hide. I know you must be worried about Wang Li. The words came out one after another, but there was no response. The expectation in Fang Yuan's eyes gradually became disappointment. He had experienced this kind of disappointment many times in the thousands of years since he came back. He even got used to it. Li, I will take good care of Wang, even if he is that person's flesh and blood. Fang Yuan murmured to himself. His spiritual awareness that covered hundreds of miles slowly shrank and turned into the usual decadent appearance. Then it fell into the town below. But he didn't see that behind him, there was a beautiful figure quietly watching his back. She was only a few feet away from him. Until Fang Yuan entered the inn, Su Li withdrew her gaze and flew to the nearest teleportation matrix. Tut tut, it is said that people are not plants or trees. Why do I feel that your heart is harder than iron and stone? Fang Yuan's life is probably ruined by you. Black Lotus came out and began to court death again. Su Li didn't get angry. She just sighed softly, and her delicate and white face showed a trace of rare depression. Whether it is true or false, I don't have the qualification to accept it. How could I have the right to accept it? I don't even dare to acknowledge Wang. Everything is not the right time. At this moment, the emotions on her face gradually converged and returned to coldness. She sped up and flew to the teleportation matrix. Although the ghost region was frozen for only half a month and then disappeared, the aftermath shocked the entire Qingshui circle. In the peaceful era, a grand elder of holy sects, equivalent to a junior emperor of human clan, died. It was so shocking that even millions of people in the entire ghost region were frozen to death were suppressed by this news. At the same time, Su Li, the culprit of this matter, also received a lot of attention. But because Su Li covered her face at that time, and she came and went without a trace, no one knew her origin. Even the largest intelligence organization in Qingshui Circle, Tainic Attic, couldn't find out the details. So, the revenge of the forces finally disappeared. However, although Tainic Attic didn't find out Su Li's identity, it didn't prevent them from inferring Su Li's name. Descendant of Ghost Clan. The ancestral land of Ghost Clan had been destroyed, leaving many traces. If Tainic Attic couldn't find this, it would be unworthy of its name. Ghost Clan had been extinct for nearly 10,000 years. If the woman had stayed in the small mysterious realm, she would be at least 10,000 years old now. Her foundation was horrible, so it was not surprising that she killed the Grand Elder of Han's sect with one move. These speculations were recorded in the Qingshui calendar chronicle by Tainic Attic and spread very quickly. After Su Li returned to Ni sect, she saw a book on her desk. She opened it and looked at it. Tainic Attic's imagination was rich enough. After all, the old men in the reincarnation mirror were likely to know that she had the Black Lotus ring. Originally, she was worried that someone would associate it with the Black Lotus. Now Tainic Attic also described her as an old man, so there was no need to worry about trouble in a short time. Li, are you looking for me? Not long after, Hua Yan came in. She didn't stay idle these days when Su Li left. With the help of the rich Hualing pool, her cultivation made great progress in a short time. It was less than half a year before she promoted to Yuanying realm, and she made another breakthrough and reached the middle stage of Yuanying realm. Su Li nodded gently and waved her hand. The stone door behind Hua Yan was automatically sealed. Hua Yan was suddenly shocked. She quickly walked to Su Li and sat down. She frowned and said, "Why are you so careful? Is it possible that your identity?" Su Li looked at her sincere face and shook her head slightly. She said, "Do you still remember the origin of that bloodstone?" Hua Yan was slightly stunned. She immediately reached out and touched the universe ring. A light flashed in her palm, and the blood-colored diamond-shaped stone covered with cracks reappeared. "Of course I remember." Hua Yan smiled and didn't ask why Su Li suddenly cared about it. She said, "At that time, I was still a nobody in the sect, but you were already a very outstanding genius in Yushu's sect. At that time, the demons woke up and brought disaster to all living beings. You and I both received the order from the sect to go down the mountain to kill the demons. Then we met in the Shengling mountain. You and I hit it off at first sight and regretted not meeting earlier. Although my strength was not as good as yours, there were many flower demons in the Shengling mountain. It was easier for me to deal with them than you. We killed a blood-colored flower demon together and found this thing in the private collection of the flower demon, but we didn't know what it was used for. In order to kill that flower demon, we planned for a long time and finally paid the price of serious injuries. But, it was you who decided the final victory. I always thought that this bloodstone should be yours, but you didn't want it and asked me to take it back. You also said that the goodies should be kept within the family." Speaking of this, Hua Yan's eyes showed an indescribable light. "At that time, I faintly guessed that your situation was not as good as it seemed, but I didn't expect it would be so serious." Su Li listened to the past quietly with a smile all the time. But Black Lotus nagged in her ear with a black face, "Well, little Su Li, I was worried about you and was afraid that Hua Yan would betray you. It turned out that the bloodstone was obtained by you two at risk. I'm so angry." Su Li blocked Black Lotus's words without a trace. She turned her hand and took out the 2 bloodstones obtained from the ancestral land from the universe ring. These 2 bloodstones were smaller than Hua Yan's, but their surface was round and smooth without cracks. In terms of appearance, they were much better. This, Hua Yan opened her eyes slightly and was greatly surprised. She picked up one of them and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, she sensed the familiar sense of danger hidden in the stone. "There is more than one bloodstone like this. Where did you get it?" Su Li didn't deliberately hide it and said directly, "From an ancient secret place with a history of tens of thousands of years." Hua Yan subconsciously thought of the popular descendant of the Ghost Clan in recent days, but she soon dispelled this idea. Although the time of Su Li's return was very coincidental, she was a real human clan with the strength of Huashan realm at most. It was impossible for her to be the descendant of the Ghost Clan. It seems that the origin of this thing is more complicated than we thought. But I have carried it with me for 1,000 years, but I haven't figured out the use of this thing. It's a pity. Su Li's heart moved when she heard this. Whether it was Hua Yan's bloodstone or the 2 in her hand, the original owner was not a human clan. Maybe, the blood of the human clan couldn't be activated. She was contemplating, and suddenly saw Hua Yan put the bloodstone in her hand and smiled a little playfully. "You have no reason to refuse now, right? It's time to return this thing to its original owner." Su Li also smiled. This time, she didn't refuse and put the bloodstone into her pocket. She happened to have some ideas to verify. The quality of this bloodstone was the worst and just right. Moreover, it was not safe to leave it in Hua Yan's hand. It was better to give it to Hua Yan after she finished studying it. Chapter 478. After Hua Yan left, Su Li called Yan Zai, Lvu, Dongfang Wuxue and others. She gave them some cultivation treasures and assigned them individual tasks. Then she announced that she would practice in isolation. At the entrance of the forbidden area in the back mountain, Yan Zai, who was emaciated and sallow, had returned to the appearance of a handsome young man. Lvu still wore a green robe and looked old. He looked at Dongfang Wuxue with a pair of cunning eyes and asked curiously, "Wuxue, what did the master give you? Third brother, take it out and have a look. Yen Zai also echoed with a smile. During this time, the three of them worked for Su Li and worked together to manage the sect. They had already become familiar with each other. Yen Zai even proposed the idea of being sworn brothers. However, Lvu always felt that he was not talented enough and always disagreed. However, Yen Zai was familiar with Dongfang Wushua's address of third brother. Dongfang Wushua looked helpless. After his physical body was reconstructed, he still looked like a young man. He looked too young. At the same time, he did not forget to take out the elixirs that Su Li gave him and shook them. His tone was complicated and moved. 10 Tianjing elixirs. The spiritual power inside is easier to absorb than the celestial stone. I can restore my cultivation in less than 10 days. This kind of elixir. Even the Dongfang family may not have one. I don't know where the master got it. Indeed, even in the holy sect where I come from, this kind of elixir is absolutely a strategic resource and extremely rare. Yen Zai nodded in agreement and then showed 5 Wujing elixirs. With the help of these elixirs, I will definitely break through the bottleneck and reach Huashan realm within half a year. Mister, he couldn't have robbed a holy sect, right? Don't joke. I think the master got an inheritance similar to Tsang Lei's cave. Ha ha ha, that's true. Lvu looked at them enviously and laughed. He looked at the Poing elixir in his hand. Although this elixir was the least valuable among the three, it was what he needed most now. And he had every reason to believe that when he reached the bottleneck of Yuanying realm, as long as his contribution was enough, he would inevitably get the help of Wujing elixir. He held the elixir in his hand and was thrilled. Once again, he was extremely glad that he made the right decision. From that moment on, his fate was completely different. After talking and laughing, the three left respectively. They all had their own tasks to complete. Since Su Li asked them alone, they would not disclose it to anyone or ask. Although Su Li told Yen Zai and others to practice in isolation was a cover, it still took her 3 days to refine the external incarnation of the Ghost Clan. It was relatively easy to refine the outer body incarnation of the Ghost Clan. After several failures and familiarizing herself with the technique, her success rate soon reached 100%. She also took the time to study the blood stone in between. With this research, they really did find some clues. In the adytum, there were 20 rows of external incarnations neatly leaning against the wall. Their faces were the same as Su Li's, which was quite frightening at first glance. At this moment, Su Li's attention was not on it, but on the blood-colored crystal in the hands of the evil ghost. At this time, the blood-colored crystal stone was emitting a dazzling light. There was a blood-colored mist around the crystal stone, which was constantly drilling into his body through the shadow of the evil ghost. Su Li's eyes were extremely bright. She was not a pure member of the primordial ghost clan, but the evil ghost had absorbed the souls of countless ghosts, so it was purer than her own body. Since the blood of the human clan had no effect on the blood crystal, she tried to let the evil ghost control the blood crystal. This control was a direct success. When a certain amount of the bloody mist poured in, Su Li saw that the fist-sized bloody crystal became smaller. At the same time, an instinct arose from the bottom of her heart. Boom! The scorching blood and pneuma gushed out, and the temperature of the whole adytum rose instantly. Su Li only felt that the pneuma and blood in her body were boiling, as if she had inexhaustible strength. My strength has improved by at least 50%. After a rough sensing, Su Li smiled. Her physical body was extremely strong, and it was nothing to burn this pneuma and blood. She could make up for it in a few breaths. It's a pity that there are too few bloodstones. Su Li took back the bloodstone in the hands of the evil ghost, shook her head and smiled. It was a pleasant surprise that she could solve the secret of the bloodstone before she went to Zisha's appointment. She was a little greedy. Thinking of this, she narrowed her eyes slightly and waved her sleeves. All external incarnations in the adytum automatically flew into the universe ring. She wiped the ring with her palm, and a delicate communication jade rune flashed out. Su Li stared at the shining Su character carved on it. Her gentle eyes suddenly became cold, and she slightly exerted force in her hand. The jade rune was crushed. At the same time, in the noble grand palace of the Su family far away, Su Chinka, who was meditating, suddenly shivered and opened his eyes. His eyes were blank for a moment, and then they became gloomy. He got up and flew out of the palace to the huge palace at the highest point of the mountains. Only halfway, he heard a low and old voice in his ear. Chinka, have you finally figured out how to explain the matter of the second branch of the Su family? Su Chinka's figure stagnated, and then he landed in front of the palace gate. He bowed submissively and said, "Brother, I didn't deliberately conceal it. There is indeed something in this matter. Now the time has come, and it's time for you to take action." At this moment, he heard a laugh beside his ear, and the palace doors opened on their own without a sound. "I'd like to see what you can say." Su Chinka's eyes flashed, and he stepped into the palace. After a while, he saw his brother, who was hundreds of times stronger than him, and the pillar of the Su family, Su Zhuanyan. Su Zhuanyan was 900 years older than Su Chinka, but his face was much younger than Su Chinka. He seemed to be in his 30s. His face was gentle and elegant, like a scholar who was well-read. Su Chinka didn't dare to be disrespectful to him. He came over and saluted first, and then he said, "Brother, I don't need to say more about the matter of the second branch of the Su family. You have almost understood it." Su Zhuanyan narrowed his eyes, looked at his biological brother, nodded gently, and said in a leisurely tone. "First, the demon crystal disappeared. You didn't continue to chase it, but went to the second branch. Su Dingchuan abandoned Su Dingxian inexplicably and supported Su Daiyin. Even you showed kindness to Su Daiyin, but you didn't ask for any benefits. This is not like you. If you and I were not born of the same mother, and your soul breath was still familiar to me, I would really think that you were replaced by an evil spirit." After that, his eyes flashed, and his doubts grew stronger. Su Chinka frowned and showed a sad expression. He said with grievance, "Brother, I did all this for the Su family. How can you doubt me so much?" "Oh." Su Zhuanyan raised his eyebrows. Su Chinka didn't wait for him to speak, and said with a little excitement, "Brother's doubts are actually the same thing. I received a message from Su Daiyin that day and went to the Black Stone Forest, but the demon crystal had disappeared strangely. I was very angry at that time and ordered Su Jinnan to investigate it. Then I promised Su Daiyin to go to the second branch to mediate the contradiction between her and Su Dingxian. Who knows? I accidentally found a big secret." Speaking of this, Su Chinka subconsciously lowered his voice, and his eyes flashed. "In the Black Stone Forest, there is a big demon born from heaven and earth." As soon as this was said, Su Zhuanyan, who had always been calm, finally changed his face. He said coldly, "How dare you lie to me? An ice demon has just appeared in the ghost region. How can another big demon appear in a short time? And every time a big demon is born, there must be a vision. How can I not receive the news?" Su Chinka didn't panic when he heard this. Instead, he smiled and said, "Brother, I didn't say that the big demon was just born, huh?" Su Zhuanyan sat up straight, and his expression suddenly eased. "Tell me in detail." If Su Chinka really lied, Su Zhuanyan would have panicked a long time ago. He could continue to stare at the pressure and continue to speak. Su Zhuanyan finally believed him a little. The remaining 90% depended on what Su Chinka said. However, how could there be loopholes in Su Li's carefully woven trap? At the moment, Su Chinka looked refreshed and immediately said, "When I went to the second branch, I felt that Su Daiyan's new disciple, Su Jojo, was fearless and had a strange attitude. So I paid more attention to her. After a few days of secret investigation, I found that she colluded with a big demon in the Black Stone Forest. After I searched Su Jojo's soul, I knew that the big demon was a demon snake that had lived for many years, and it was a natural big demon. It had never been envied by natural law in these years of cultivation, but the big demon was about to slough today. Brother, you naturally know what it means. Suchinka clenched his fists heavily, and his eyes were full of excitement and fanaticism, as if what he said was his personal experience. Su Zhuanyan's eyebrows and eyes jumped slightly. Snake slew. After the big demon snake slew, its strength must be greatly increased, and it is no longer protected by natural law. There must be a thunder test, he talked to himself, and suddenly remembered that there was a short thunder test in the Black Stone Forest a few days ago, but it didn't strike anything, only a group of casual practitioners were killed. It was true. What Suchinka said was all true. If some words were said, it would feel fake. But Suchinka said half of a sentence, and Su Zhuanyan linked all kinds of traces together, immediately convinced him. At this moment, his heart, which had been silent for thousands of years, beat violently. He didn't count on the big demon ghost region, but this big demon was obviously stronger and more powerful. If he could get it and use it as medicine, maybe, he could become a junior emperor. Thinking of this, he suddenly looked at Suchinka. As soon as he spoke, his tone changed. How long, before the snake slough? Su Zhuanyan stood up. Suchinka laughed, I don't know, but... Su Jouzhou is the stove made by the big demon to resist nature's test. As long as we follow Su Jouzhou, we will have a bright future. It's normal that you don't know the time of the snake slew. Su Zhuanyan nodded, and suddenly frowned, and said angrily, Bastard. You hide such an important thing and don't report it. If you fail to kill the demon because of insufficient preparation time, I will punish you. After that, Su Zhuanyan flicked his sleeves and left in a hurry. Suchinka shrank his neck and waited until Su Zhuanyan's pneuma completely disappeared in his perception. He raised his head and laughed nervously. Chapter 479. Master, fortunately, I didn't fail you. The jade token sent a message, and Suchinka's voice echoed in her ears. Su Li smiled beautifully. She looked up at the tall and desolate mountains and stepped into the forest. Her figure was submerged by the vegetation. Just a few seconds after she entered, two obscure streamers landed outside the forest. After the light dissipated, the figures of Suchinka and Su Zhuanyan appeared. This barren forest is famous for its low nimbus in Jouzhou region. If the mighty demon wants to pass the test, it must be supplied with nimbus. How could it make such a stupid mistake? Su Zhuanyan's lips buzzed. Suchinka also pretended to think and responded, the weaker the spiritual aura is, the lower the power of nature's punishment will be. The mighty demon may have other plans. Let's go in and see. As he said, he was about to leave, but Su Zhuanyan frowned and stopped him. Suchinka's heart thumped. Did he reveal a flaw? Since it is a resourceful mighty demon, it is hard to guarantee that it has the means of perception that we don't know. When nature's test comes and disturbs the rules, we can go in. Suchinka breathed a sigh of relief and nodded again and again. He said with fear, Brother, you are really thoughtful. Su Zhuanyan seemed to be in a good mood and scolded with a smile, If you are calm, your cultivation will not stop at Huashan realm. After getting the mighty demon, you can take some Hengqian elixir back and refine your mind. The implication was obviously that he was not going to share the mighty demon with Suchinka. Suchinka was not afraid, but he was overjoyed. Thank you, brother. Su Zhuanyan saw that he was so sensible, and the smile on his face was more intense. Su Li walked steadily all the way until she stopped by the huge lake at the top of the mountain. She looked around with twinkling eyes. This boundless lake was obviously dug recently, but there were not many excavation traces left. It was mostly dug by the group of faceless snake men in Zisha's hands. In fact, it was true. Through the clear lake, she immediately saw the entangled snake men at the bottom of the lake. It was dense like a snake cave. You really came. Very good. The charming voice of the purple evil spirit came from all directions, which made Su Li unable to find the source. She only knew that it was hidden in the large number of demon crystals under the lake. I came as promised, but you didn't even show your face. Su Li took a deep breath and said in a cold tone. She was usually calm, but at this moment, there was unconcealable anxiety and uneasiness. Hee hee. Don't you humans have a saying? One must always be on guard against others. I don't want to give away my tens of thousands of years of cultivation to someone else. Su Li frowned, and her tone was slightly cold. It seemed that she was angry. Zisha, you are too much. I've never broken the agreement between us, and I've never told anyone about you. Ha! I naturally know what you have done. Otherwise, do you think you can still come in front of me alive? In the end, Zisha's soft tone suddenly became cold. Su Li tightened her body slightly and snorted, "Don't talk nonsense. I'm here as promised. I will only help you stall for a quarter of an hour. If the abnormal phenomenon attracts others, I won't be blamed. That's natural. Since you are ready to accept nature's punishment, then, as you wish." Before she finished her words, the calm lake in Su Li's sight immediately rippled. At first, it was like a breeze blowing, but as time went by, the wind gradually raged. The slight ripple was immediately pushed by an unknown force into a stormy wave, which turned into a waterspout and rushed to the sky. Whoosh! The broken water splashed into raindrops and poured down. Su Li stared at the water vortex without blinking. Her pupils slowly contracted, and the fear grew stronger. Suddenly, whoosh! 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 Countless serpent men turned into a ray of light, circling around the water column and going against the current. The densely packed serpent men writhed madly and hissed at the sky. If it was an ordinary cultivator, just seeing this scene was enough to scare them to the point of fainting. It has begun. Outside the barren forest, Su Juanyan saw the water spout into the sky, and his eyes were full of horror. If he still had a 90% guess before, at this moment he saw it with his own eyes, there was no doubt in his heart. He thought quickly about how to kill the demon with the least cost. Boom! The snake-shaped thunderbolt flashed, and the sky suddenly became dark. It was so dark that one could not see his fingers. The thunderbolt flashed for a moment, and 1/10 of the snakes were chopped into pieces of minced meat. Blood rained. Su Li stood on the shore and looked up at the apocalyptic scene in the distance quietly. She let the blood fall on her face and be washed clean by the rain. The cycle was endless. What a big thundercloud. Even the sky is completely covered. Su Chinka and Su Juanyan stood in the distance with horror in their eyes. At this moment, although their cultivations were in different realms, their thoughts were very consistent. Su Jojo. Do it. But at this moment, there was a roar full of anger in the barren forest. It was completely different from the gentle female voice before. Instead, it was like the voice of countless men and women mixed together, which made Su Juanyan's hair stand on end. Even if the strength of this mighty demon dropped sharply during the snake slew, would he be her opponent? But the thought of retreating only flashed in his mind for a moment, and it was completely overwhelmed by the huge benefits of killing the demon queen. Kill at all costs. Su Li was wet all over, and her face was cold. She looked at the lake with a pale red color because 80% of the snakes were dead, and said unhurriedly, "What are you afraid of? The snakes are not dead yet. I will only help you for a quarter of an hour. If I make a move too early and you can't make it, what should I do if you drag me to death?" While saying this, Su Li retreated without a trace, and immediately felt that she was locked by an extremely dangerous thought, as if as long as she took another step back, she would face an overwhelming terrorist attack. "If you escape, you will die now." The sharp tone was mixed with countless sounds, which made Su Li's eardrums hurt. She no longer retreated, but turned around and flew to the water spout. The pressure on her body suddenly lightened. But she was not relaxed for a long time, and she was stared at by another more terrifying pressure. Boom! The dark clouds suddenly tumbled violently. Before Su Li's flying knife and water spout, a bucket-thick purple thunderbolt fell. The power of this thunderbolt was more than twice as powerful as the one that struck Zi Sha's head before. I can't bear it. Su Li's face changed slightly. Without saying anything, she took out the tactical matrix for camouflage modified by Zi Sha's demon crystal and opened it. The purple thunderbolt struck on the protective shield of the tactical matrix, and a strong purple light appeared. The whole tactical matrix creaked as if it would explode in the next moment. However, the tactical matrix still held. Su Li breathed a sigh of relief, but Zi Sha's exasperated and frightened voice came from under her feet. This is the Purple Emperor Supreme Thunder? You, what kind of monster are you? Bastard, my thunder for punishment. Su Li didn't know what the Purple Emperor Supreme Thunder was, but she also saw that the black cloud generated because of her gradually merged with Zi Sha's Tribulation Cloud. In the end, the Tribulation Cloud, which was originally flashing with blue electric arcs, was full of breathtaking purple. The terrifying power of destruction was brewing in the overwhelming thunder for punishment. Su Li looked at the core of the tactical matrix that was cracked into several halves in her hand. This tactical matrix for camouflage that had accompanied her for a year finally died of old age and could no longer be used. How to block the next blow? She looked up at the electric arcs and the thunder gathering. Her eyebrows almost knitted together. She couldn't escape forever, but at this moment, nature's punishment was obviously not going to give her a chance to think. After 3 breaths, boom. The purple thunder slanted down and drowned Su Li in the blink of an eye. It went straight into the water, and the lake crackled continuously. It instantly became a pool of thunder. Although Zi Sha hid in the depths of the lake, half of her body was still numb because of the purple thunder and lightning. Su Jojo, damn you. Zi Sha gritted her teeth, moved her body with hatred, and stared at the purple sky. She never dreamed that Su Jojo, the person who was jealous of by heaven, had a higher potential than her, so she attracted a more powerful thunder for punishment. The means she prepared were not enough to deal with it. But now, it was too late to say anything. Su Jojo had been smashed into flying ashes, and even her ashes were scattered with the wind. Where could she go to take revenge? Suddenly, the rolling purple thunder in the sky quickly faded and became the original blue, and even the blue was much lighter than before. Zi Sha was stunned and immediately overjoyed. Insufficient nimbus. Insufficient nimbus. The nimbus in this area was too thin, and the natural law had no time to mobilize too much nimbus to turn into thunder in a short time. The blow that killed Su Jojo just now was too strong, which directly led to the decline of her thunder power. Ha ha ha. Su Jojo. Zi Sha couldn't help laughing excitedly. Her delicate face suddenly twisted and turned into a huge snake head. Only the pair of purple eyes still glowed with the familiar feeling. Whoosh! The red lake water overflowed to the shore, and Zi Sha rushed out of the water. Her body finally appeared. Her head was held high, and her body full of strange patterns and scales convulsed. Layers of skin fell into the lake. She didn't need to treat the thunder for punishment whose power was reduced by 1 level. Dark clouds rolled, boom. Boom. More than a dozen thunderbolts struck down one after another. The snake scales were flying, and the blood was dripping. Zi Sha's roar constantly echoed in the lake. Although the thunder for punishment was no longer a concern, she had reached the end of her snake shedding at this moment, which was the weakest time. Although the thunder for punishment could not hurt her seriously, it still brought her some pain. The dark sky gradually became clear, and the dark clouds dispersed. Until the last thunderbolt fell, there was no abnormality. Zi Sha was finally relieved. She looked up and enjoyed the long-lost warm sunshine. Suddenly, a golden light shuttled through quickly. The exposed flesh of Zi Sha's snake body was drilled, and a blood hole as big as a washbasin appeared. Hiss! The sharp pain attacked her nerves. Zi Sha raised her head and roared. She opened her bloody mouth to bite the golden light, but the speed of the golden light accelerated again. It narrowly escaped being bitten by Zisha. The blood was rolling, and Zisha quickly coiled up. Her snake eyes stared at the golden light going away. Finally, it fell beside an elegant scholar with a smile and turned into a golden mummy. It seems that I came at the right time. Chapter 480. The Corpse Control Method of the Corpse Refining School. Zisha's huge snake head was raised high. She looked down at Su Juanyan with a gloomy gaze. It turns out to be the little bastard of the Su family. Su Juanyan suddenly stretched out his hand, and the golden corpse immediately turned into an afterimage. The second half of Zisha's sentence was directly strangled in her throat. Although you are a mighty demon who has lived for countless years, but this trick of delaying time is too low-end. Not to mention me, any practitioner with a little bit of insight can easily see the flaws. Su Juanyan's tone was neither fast nor slow, but his 10 fingers moved flexibly and turned into an afterimage. On each fingertip, there was a transparent silk thread that spread to the nothingness. Every time the silk thread trembled, the golden corpse dodged every attack of Zisha like a living person, and looked for a gap to leave a wound on the snake's body. The pale red lake water smelled fishy, and the color became more and more intense. The giant snake roared and was furious, but it had no way to deal with the golden corpse. The minor injuries on its body gradually evolved into serious injuries over time. Zisha thought that her speed was not slow, but the speed of the golden corpse was obviously faster. It was so fast that it even exceeded the limit of nature's test and reached the extreme of Desheng realm. Su Juanyan himself only had the cultivation of the early stage of nature's test. It was all because of the golden corpse. Hiss. Roar. Human clan, damn it. Her eyes, which were as huge as copper tombs, reflected a monstrous fury. She twisted her body and slapped the lake water, raising a huge wall of water. In the next instant, a golden light flashed, and the wall of water was neatly cut into 8 pieces and fell into the lake. The mighty demon can't hold on any longer. If Su Juanyan succeeds, why hasn't the master appeared yet? Outside the forest, Su Chinka saw this scene worriedly. He was so anxious that he wanted to rush into the forest. Suddenly, a white and slender hand gently rested on his shoulder. Su Chinka's scalp was numb, and he subconsciously wanted to fight back to defend himself. But when he saw the appearance of Su Jojo next to him, he suddenly felt relieved. He wiped the sweat on his forehead and said, "Master, don't worry, it's not time yet." Su Li waved her hand and calmly looked at the mythical battle scene in the distance. She said with a smile, "Although your brother has the golden armored corpse refined by the holy method of the sect, he underestimates the mighty demon who has lived for countless years." Su Chinka was shocked, and his face changed. "Sir, you mean..." Boom. Before he could open his mouth, an explosion suddenly sounded in his ears, followed by a violent hurricane that swept through the entire forest. Countless towering trees were snapped in half and swept into the sky by the violent wind. At this time, a figure flew out of the forest and turned into a stream of light, shooting straight at Su Chinka's feet. Pa! Su Chinka's pupils suddenly contracted. He only saw that the golden corpse bombarded the mountain rock, which was not hard, but it was smashed like a rotten tomato. Seeing the destructive state of the golden corpse, Su Chinka had an inopportune thought in his mind. So our Su family's trump card, the holy corpse, is black inside. With a shudder, he looked up and saw the ripples reflected in the nothingness. A pair of smooth feet stepped in the high sky of the forest. Every time she took a step, the distance under her feet would instantly shorten by hundreds of meters. Supernatural power, shrinking distance. Su Chinka looked at the sky in horror. He turned his head and was about to say something to Su Li, but he found that Su Li had already disappeared in place. Su Juanyan fled desperately with his sword in horror. The blood in his mouth kept gushing out as if it was free. Giggle. Little guy, didn't you fight very happily just now? Why are you running? Hearing the charming voice behind him, Su Juanyan patted his chest fiercely without saying a word. He spat out a big mouthful of blood into the flying sword, and the speed was faster. Just now, he controlled the golden corpse and finally killed the giant snake, but he didn't expect that a pair of hands suddenly stretched out from the ordinary nothingness. With just a gentle slap, his life-bonded golden corpse, which he had spent thousands of years to refine, was turned into a pile of minced meat. If this slap happened to him, just thinking about it, Su Juanyan shuddered. The culprit who made this slap was chasing him at the moment. "Senior, I didn't mean to offend you. I was also deceived by others, so I did such a disrespectful thing to you." If he died this time, everything he had cultivated for thousands of years would be gone. He transmitted the sound in fear. At this moment, the dignity of the old ancestor of the Su family was all left behind. "As long as Senior is willing to spare my life, I will definitely catch the messenger in front of you, cut him into pieces, and torture him to death. This Junior is even more willing to be your servant, to worship you for generations to come, to respect you as my lord." As soon as he finished speaking, the coquettish and beautiful face behind him suddenly opened her mouth. The small cherry mouth instantly cracked to the ears, and it expanded dozens of times in the wind. She swallowed Su Juanyan in one gulp. Crack, crack, crack. After a chewing sound that made people's teeth ache, Zi Sha's pale face finally recovered a little ruddy, and her mind was slightly relaxed. The counterattack just now was not easy for her. Fortunately, Su Juanyan did not escape too far, otherwise, Zi Sha took a deep look at the direction of Lei Yuan's sect, which was the nearest to the Su family, and turned around to return. Suddenly, Zi Sha's footsteps stopped. She looked down and saw the bloody palm inserted in her chest. Her face changed wildly, and she opened her mouth to spit red blood. She didn't care that her heart was pulled out by the hand, and she flashed back. When she saw the person behind her, her face was completely gloomy. Su Jojo. Her thoughts turned very fast. At the moment when Su Li appeared, she figured out the ins and outs. She was actually schemed by this weak human. Puff. Su Li stretched out her hand and pulled hard. After breaking the blood vessels connected to the heart, she sent them to Black Lotus Ring for sealing. After finishing this step, Su Li looked up at Zi Sha, who looked paler, and said with a smile, "Senior, it's impolite not to reciprocate. Since you are not ready to let me live, if I show mercy, won't I look down on you?" Zi Sha stared at Su Li as if she knew her for the first time. Her eyes were no longer coercion and contempt, but equality. Su Jojo. She calmed down, took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, "You are a smart person. You should understand that my means can't be forced by Su Juanyan. Why do you and I have a life and death struggle? I deceived you, and you also got my heart, which caused my strength to be greatly reduced. In this way, you and I are even. I make a demon oath that I will not seek revenge from you after this disaster, and you will not plot against me again. How about it?" Su Li bowed her head and pondered for a moment. She raised her head and smiled warmly. There was no murderous intention on her face. "Senior Zi Sha, I have to say that your proposal is very tempting." Zi Sha was slightly relieved, but before she spoke, her face suddenly changed, and she looked in the direction of the lake. A newborn great demon. But, Su Li gently approached Zi Sha. As she moved her fingers, golden thunderbolts appeared out of thin air, which instantly turned into a cage and enveloped Zi Sha. "I still have a little guy to feed. If you can give up your flesh and blood, we are even." Zi Sha's eyes suddenly turned red. That was the essence she had accumulated for thousands of years. It was her foundation. If it was swallowed, she could not survive at all. "You are going too far." Zi Sha's face was ferocious. She reached out to grab the golden thunderbolt. When her palm touched the holy thunder, it was immediately burned with a sizzling sound. But she didn't seem to feel it. As she screamed, she turned into a pocket-sized snake body, and her tail slammed on the thunder cage. The booming sound resounded through the sky. A small part of the golden cage collapsed, and a purple light pierced Su Li's chest like lightning. Crack! The sound of glass breaking rang in her ears. At the same time, the purple light also seemed to be repelled by an unknown force. It turned back to its original body with bruises all over. Su Li was stunned, and then she was horrified. She took out the life-saving magic ball that she got from Su Chinka in her arms, and then saw that the round magic ball suddenly had countless cracks and collapsed into nothingness. The law of universe, haha, even the heaven is helping you. Zisha laughed miserably when she saw the broken magic ball. No, the heaven will only hope that I die early. Su Li replied faintly. Even if Zisha was an arrow at the end of its flight, she only replenished the thunder cage from a distance. In front of a desperate situation, Zisha calmed down. She stared at Su Li, who was always as calm as ice, and her hair fluttered wildly. I am not wrong. This is the way of the world. I don't want to kill people, but they want to kill me all the time. Fortunately, I will kill enough. You human clan are all greedy and selfish people. I am defeated. I am defeated. I have nothing to say. I can see that you and I are the same kind of people. One day, you will be schemed to death by others like me. Ha ha ha. Golden thunderbolt struck down and smashed Zisha's body into a piece of charcoal, but it didn't stop. Su Li looked at Zisha quietly and said. She laughed wildly and was desperate until there was no vitality. She kept silent. She was terribly calm. After a while, she suddenly said, Zisha, it's useless to pretend to be dead. After the voice, there was no movement. Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly. She simply removed the cage and approached Zisha. Master, don't, Black Lotus's heart tightened. He saw the heart in the ring space suddenly beat slightly. Before he had time to remind Su Li, the pitch-black corpse suddenly split into hundreds of thousands of small snakes. They opened their mouths and showed their sharp teeth to bite Su Li. Su Li grinned, I know you can't help it. Wuyo. Before she finished her words, an amazing chill came from behind. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of thousands of small snakes were all frozen. Ow woo woo, the little white fox rushed out of Su Li's arms and broke the All-Spirits jade rune on its body. A strong pneuma of a mighty demon came. At the same time, a statue of the little white fox next to the lake was broken. The ice demon had been hiding in Su Li's arms all the time. Whoosh! The ice flower was broken and condensed into Zisha's appearance again. But compared with Zisha before, she was more petite, and her face was pale and almost transparent. Cough, Zisha covered her chest and coughed. Blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. She looked at Su Li with amazement. Rarely admire human clan. You are very... Zisha suddenly opened her mouth and spat out a green poisonous fog, which instantly enveloped Su Li. Chapter 481. Master. Black Lotus ring vibrated violently. His worry finally became a reality. The trick that Zisha used until now couldn't be ordinary snake venom. Could Su Li withstand it? Zisha's dim pupils had a glimmer of hope. As soon as the green poisonous mist appeared, it corroded the nothingness and corroded all Su Li's clothes into nothingness in the blink of an eye. But that was all. Su Li stood in the nothingness without any clothes. Her slender and white body was looming in the mist. Her white skin glowed in the green mist. Zisha held her breath. Useless? Is this your last resort? Su Li tilted her head and smiled. Her long hair danced in the wind like splashing ink. Such a beautiful picture was no different from a devil in her eyes. It's really disappointing, Su Li said. She twisted the wind with her fingertips and compressed the green poisonous mist into a ball. Then she sealed it in the bottle. Nice poison. I'll accept it. Zisha stared at Su Li in a daze. Countless scenes from her childhood flashed in her mind. The glory when the demon clan was established and the struggle when the demon clan was exiled flashed in her mind. Finally, a bitter and relieved smile appeared on her face. I lost. After that, her body disappeared with the wind. That ball of life-bound poison was all she had. Su Li looked at the green glass bottle in her hand. After a moment of silence, she took out a set of clothes from the universe ring and put them on. The little white fox cheered and rushed to the lake where Zisha's real body was. After swallowing Zisha's real body, it would inevitably grow rapidly in a short time and even transform. It was much easier for a born great demon to transform than a great demon from the demon clan. Master, you killed Zisha and turned the tide. Aren't you happy? Black Lotus felt a trace of emotion revealed by Su Li and couldn't help but ask cautiously. Happy? Should I be happy? Su Li murmured in a low voice. It seemed to be an answer, but it was more like she was saying it to herself. In order to survive, Zisha had to find an opportunity to shed her skin. In order to survive, she also had to kill Zisha to eliminate future troubles. She couldn't speak without being crazy. There was no absolute right or wrong in this world. She didn't hate Zisha. Now that Zisha died in her hands, there was nothing to be happy about. Worryless. Su Li called softly. Suddenly, a white shadow shot out from the lake and landed on her shoulder. Woo-woo. The little white fox's bright big eyes were full of ignorance and doubt, and it seemed to feel that Su Li's mood was not high. Su Li glanced at the empty lake and didn't know where the little white fox hid Zisha's body. She gently touched the little white fox's soft and furry head and flew away. Farewell, mister. On the ground, Suchinka knelt down and bowed deeply. His eyes were full of morbid fanaticism. Even a great demon could not escape the fate of death in the hands of its master. Suchinka. I swear to be loyal to master. Half a day later, Su Li returned to the adytum of the Forbidden Land in the back mountain of Ni sect, as if nothing had happened. The news of Su Zhuanyan's death did not spread. Only Suchinka knew it. It was easy for Suchinka to secretly become the only master of the Su family. Su Li didn't bother to pay attention to those trivial things. There was no doubt about Suchinka's loyalty. The only thing she needed to care about now was the effect of reincarnation mirror to suppress her pneuma. After all, after she came out of the ancestral land of the ghost clan, her strength was greatly improved, and the pneuma of the body of evil ghost was stronger. If reincarnation mirror could not completely cover her pneuma, the consequences would be very troublesome. For this reason, Su Li specially spent time to do a test with her external incarnation. The disciples of Ni sect clearly felt that the thunder around the sect this month was very frequent. It was said to be a strange phenomenon from the sky, but there was no sign of any treasure appearing in the world. As time went by, no one cared about it anymore. Hua Yan, Yen Zai and others just felt strange, but they didn't think it was Su Li. In their eyes, although Su Li was powerful, she couldn't reach the level of nature's test. What's more, the flashing thunder outside was not like the thunder of nature's test. 3 months later, the Su family experienced a bloody purge and completely fell into the control of Suchinka. Su Li's test finally came out. In the forbidden land of the back mountain, Su Li stood on a bare mountain that had been struck by thunder for nature's test. Watching the last external incarnation being smashed in the thunder, she sighed softly. Reincarnation mirror was too broken. Even if the fragments snatched from Han's sect were completely digested, it didn't reach 10% completeness. The effect of shielding the natural law was extremely limited. For this reason, Su Li had to find a way from the demon crystal left by Zisha. It took her 3 months to remake a matrix rune with the demon crystal that surpassed the 11th grade. The materials used were all the top grade of the grand secret of Han's sect. But the result of the test was just satisfactory. It allowed her to burst out 60% of her strength without being noticed by the natural law. If the release of strength exceeded 60%, the blue nature's test would quickly gather like a shark smelling the fish. If the release of strength exceeded 80%, the blue nature's test would turn into purple emperor extreme thunder as it did against Zisha. Suli had to send one or even two external incarnations to completely offset the nature's test. And if she completely burst out 100% of her strength, the purple thunder would turn into a black thunder snake that she had never seen before. The power of the thunder for nature's test was far greater than that of Purple Emperor Extreme Thunder. It reached a level that Suli couldn't understand at all. For this, Suli sacrificed 10 external incarnations. Master, even if you collected a lot of ghosts and souls in the ancestral land, you shouldn't waste them like this. Seeing Suli in silence, Black Lotus sighed. Those were the fine souls carefully collected by the Ghost Clan for hundreds of thousands of years. They were wasted like this. Suli glanced at Black Lotus and didn't speak. The waste of external incarnations was necessary. The plan she was going to implement next must be supported by strength. She couldn't count on the fragments of the ancestral land of the Ghost Clan to save her every time, or another mighty demon would disturb the order of the natural law so that she could take advantage of the loopholes. When the ancestral land of the Ghost Clan collapsed, she collected a lot of fragments and hid them in the space around her to reduce consumption. But, she could feel that the power of those fragments of the world that had lost their core was fading rapidly with time. Maybe it would be completely ineffective in a few years. Every time she used it, it would accelerate the disappearance of the fragments. Moreover, in order to scare off the Grand Elder of Han's sect who chased after her last time, she had already used 90% of the fragments. She would be thankful if the remaining fragments could kill a senior of Desheng realm. Suli took a deep breath. The light in her eyes flowed, and her calculation became deeper. She understood it very well. Such strength and foundation were far from enough to fight against Yushu's sect. However, if the immortal tea plant died, her chances would undoubtedly be smaller. There was not much time left. Master, are you back? In the forest, the bell rang, and Yen Zai's voice came into her ears. Suli collected her thoughts and disappeared in a flash. When she reappeared, she was already in front of Yen Zai. Yen Zai had long been accustomed to his master's mysterious way of appearing and disappearing. He immediately said respectfully, "Master, something happened to the second branch of the Su family. Su Chinka has gone to deal with it." "What happened?" "Su Wenbing is dead." Yen Zai's voice was slightly low. Suli suddenly raised her eyebrows. An hour later, in the lobby where the second branch of the Su family was located, the atmosphere was solemn. Ling Qinglan, Su Daiyin, Su Xianyun and others were all there. Suli squatted down and lifted the white cloth on the ground. Su Wenbing's pale face came into view. There was not much panic on his face, but more relief and shame. She lifted the white cloth further, but she saw a mass of rotten flesh below his neck. It seemed that he was cut and smashed by extremely sharp golden air. His corpse was not intact. Suli narrowed her eyes, put down the white cloth, stood up, and looked at Ling Qinglan. Ling Qinglan understood and shook his head regretfully. "I was careless." Jin Dao cult suddenly attacked Daiyin. If this guy didn't block the attack, Suli glanced at Su Daiyin, who was pale and lost in thought while looking at Su Wenbing's corpse. Then she waved to Ling Qinglan, "Let's go out and talk." Ling Qinglan nodded and left with Suli first. Although he had a strong intuition that Su Jojo was Suli every time, he could control his emotions and no longer leak them. "Tell me the ins and outs." Standing on the edge of the cliff, Ling Qinglan followed Suli. When he heard the question, he said with a complicated expression, "Su Daiyan's origin is related to Jin Dao cult, and the master of Jin Dao cult wants to kill her as soon as possible. After Su Zhuanyan died, Jin Dao cult wanted to kill her. That's why there was such a thrill. I also found this out later." Before Su Wenbing died, he revealed that he was the illegitimate son of Su Dingxian. In the lobby, Su Dayin took a deep breath, walked to the white cloth and squatted down. She stretched out her hand and touched the white cloth. Then she withdrew her hand as if she was electrocuted. Yesterday's events kept flashing in her mind. The golden blades were like flying flowers all over the sky, but they were all blocked by Su Wenbing behind him. Su Dayin stared at Su Wenbing in a daze. Su Wenbing showed a painful look, but he was still smiling at her. His bloody hands grasped her tightly, and his voice was choked with sobs. After my father asked me to worship you as my master, there was no news from me for hundreds of years. Master, I dare not forget your kindness. I thought I would never go back to that hell in my life, but I can't disobey my father's order. No matter how he treats me, he is still my father. Master, I'm sorry. I've done something wrong. I'm going to repent in hell. Master, take care. Silly boy. Su Dingxian is not worthy of your life. When did he treat you as his son? It's my fault. If I can find out. Su Dayin's voice was hoarse and choked. Su Xianyun and Su Zheng stood behind. Their eyes were red and moist, and they grasped the swords in their hands tightly. They didn't feel the pain of the third junior fellow apprentice before, but it was too late now. Step, 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 suddenly, footsteps sounded. Su Dayin raised her head and saw Su Li and Ling Qinglan coming. She was confused, but Su Li suddenly smiled and said to her in a relaxed tone, Su Dayin, are you interested in being the master of Jindao cult? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.